Без паники. Я знаю, что чуть проебался. Пу-пу-пу. Да. Высокие субтитры. Зачем? Всем привет. Всем куку. Какая зона прикольная.
From what I saw, you know, being in 5th place, that's pretty good, pretty damn decent, right? You know, you're not completely unhappy with it. And I think if we stripped away the logo, we stripped away the
Здорово.
name, we stripped away the legacy of these players, you know, looking at Gamelo's gameplay, you'd be like, you know, that's pretty decent. But the difference is that we know the legacy of these guys. They are legends themselves. The issue is that these legends are popping up singular at a time, right? You see Narvalo pop off, you see Robs pop off, you see Victor pop off, but we're not seeing this actual group pop off as one. So I do want to see more of a team win. We saw that at the very first game over in, I believe it was Yasnaya on Erangel, but we've not seen that since. So
я забыл свою хуйню эту
hoping for a little bit more from the French team. It looks like Stalber's been a little bit hot over on the north side. Take Aim Gaming and Eastern Stars going at it over there. Looks like is that Forum Indian men as well, pretty close by.
Вебку накрыть просто поставить? Да можно, что?
Yeah, very curious drop. So Eastern Stars are only losing 2. Kind of bad for them.
Okay.
I think they were definitely our most consistent team from day to day. And I do want to make a small correction to the desk, small correction, because I think they were saying that, you know, Eastern Stars were the most consistent. Yes, by around about 10 point over the 2 other games that Mad Bulls had, right? I think it was 40, 42, and somewhere up in the 80s on their second day. Now, you average that out, John, right? That's some really good days overall. Even if they're not hitting that 50 caliber that, you know, Eastern Stars has hit over all 3 days, Mad Bulls haven't dropped off hugely on the 2 days where, you know, in quotation marks, they didn't do so well. So I think Mad Bulls is definitely another team we need to watch out for. I think you'd be quicker on foot, mate. Honestly.
It's just, I don't think, well,
downhill, maybe a little bit quicker.
Make sure you're going down.
Пацаны, крысиный PMPL пошел.
This is 4 Romanian men who were in this glut on the northeast side,
По-моему, ничего не изменилось.
Near Take Aim Gaming, all of whom have suffered casualties, except for 4 Romanian men. Rana did get knocked just a moment ago, but was rezzed on out. None of these teams are going to be super fully looted, and there's going to be a West Circle shift as well. So I'm not imagining too much can really be achieved much further into the game, barring getting some really decent loot and maybe a hard shift or 2 to the east side.
Я, короче, вот так сделаю.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how far Eastern Stars can go. They're heading down towards Yasnaya, but they will pass that, right? Surely you know that the guys from the French team of Gamelor is going to be heading towards that position.
Здорово.
TJB over towards Lipovka. They do have Xiao in that location at the moment. But Take Aim Gaming are sending a couple over there. So TJB either, you know,
У нас поход побег намечается, господа.
Take that fight over towards Lipovka, which is unwise considering the circle. You do need to be making your way across towards maybe Potato to do some scouting, and then heading down towards the fielded area, perhaps Yellows. Not a bad idea either. On board with Game Lord though, and again, this is something that we talked about in the very initial stages of Phase 1, which is, you know, there's been a lot of fighting in the early game for Western Europe. Usually this is one of our more peaceful regions. You look over towards the NA PMPL, that's where you typically see a lot of those early drops, a lot of teams, you know, dueling it out.
Бля, я же неправильно поставил это
We're
же.
getting a much more aggressive gameplay now.
P1,
We talked about how it might be format, and it seems that is the case. That a lot of these
Как поживает? Да нормально.
Take a risk to get as many points as possible instead of just qualifying in that top 16.
Exactly, right? Because it's not about that short sprint to the weekly super weekends anymore. It's about, as they were talking about, consistency, like you said, over these weeks, getting those bonus points in where you can to set yourself up for the finals. Because sure, it's 20 points in first place, but then it's 19 points, 18 points, 17, 16, 17, 16. You know how numbers work.
Какие же, блядь, они неуверенные.
But that's really going to be huge for so many of these teams. If you could just consistently get into 4th place every week, that's going to be massive for your chances in the finals.
Yeah, but there's also real opportunity for some pop-off days for some of these teams. I believe it was TJB who zoomed up the rankings from low in the teens towards, you know, 18th, 16th, 15th place. They've flown up to 8th place now. You can see them at the top of your screen, just behind Pioneers. Obviously, 82 points to 113. There is a slight drop-off there, so they will have to, you know, earn a little bit more points. But for these teams towards the bottom, like an 80-point day is completely doable, and that will shoot you up the rankings. So you're by no means out now at this point in time. You're not having that full reset every single time. You know, you do have 6 days to try and get towards the top, to try and earn those 20, 19, 17 points and pop those in your bag going forward. You specifically do want to be in that top 12 though, so you can earn a few more of those points over on our final match of phase 1, which will be Livik. Obviously,
идет внимательное изучение камеры.
But any additional points you can get, you know, I believe it, like a 20 point is completely doable on Livik, and that can see you the difference between a second and a first place, which is huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly good to go in with that confidence, right? Sat in first place, you know you've taken down that week 1. You've got a little bit of breathing room there with a high point week. And of course,
Ладно, все, возвращаем вебку на место.
To the overall bonus as well, right? If you're in all 3 Liviks, you're getting that chance to add to your points total overall in the final standings. You're going to get 3 extra games with all 3 of those to have your extra shot, those extra 20.
Спасибо большое за полтинчик, Долбит.
За милашку крысяшку, чтоб фуллстрим была.
Спасибо, спасибо. Фуллстрим не знаю, но буду почаще их показывать.
This is something that every team needs to be looking out for, specifically if you want to be in Western Europe and gunning towards those
Крысиный король, Сплинтер. Бля, почему эту хуйню назвали крысиный король? Вы знаете, что такое крысиный король вообще? Крысиный король — это когда крысы хвостами запутываются и ничего не могут сделать. И, типа, скорее всего, это с концами. Почему эту хуйню крысиный король назвали? Почему это не назвали вкусный ужин или еще что-нибудь? Так, сейчас прок будет? Что за прок у нас интересный такой? Да. У нас, кажется, будет интересная первая катка. Это, походу, пляж будет. Я давно, кстати, эту зону не видел.
Nice spot for them as well. Having the Mad Bulls over on that western coast, they'll be safe for now. See how they can fare moving forwards. Likely that the next
По тебе не соскучился, Мухомор?
just sort of to the west of Gatka, to the south of Narvi. It will come back inland, we hope. If it's to be believed, this is a replay of these hot drops. Okay, so some vehicles going on in that northeast side that they were all fighting over. I think this is where the buggy lost all its tires. Yeah, there you go.
Some unfortunate crossfire on the buggy whilst they try and take down Athens.
Да, я видел сейчас новость, что Олда кикнули украинского турнира. Самое забавное, что у меня мой, типа, чел играет, ну, который в моей команде, он тоже играет эти квалы, и как раз-таки он говорит, что команда Олдбоя — это самый основной соперник, потому что Олдбой вышел с первого места своей группы в финал, и мой челик вышел с первого места. И здесь была интересная заруба, потому что топ-1 же всего едет. Бля, ну они теперь драться начали, прикиньте. Вот они тупые, пиздец. Что вы деретесь? Да что кикнули? За то, что ВП российская организация. Я сейчас только тренирую, не, я же не играю. Так я и не играл в него никогда, ну в плане мобильной. Покашный, не знаю, там, может, раз в неделю зайду чисто по фану побегать. Ночью. И все. За то, что манекен клоун? Блин, там что-то какой-то файт крысиный начался. Хотите посмотреть на крысиный файт?
Not enjoying his presence on
Они
the team
перестали,
either.
блядь, ну ладно.
We'll see what happens. Perhaps it's just a case of giving him some time to cool off before he comes back in, because we know that the guy can pop off, and this is the reason why I feel like I can say this, because we know he's an excellent player. The question is how well he meshes into a team, which seems to be the issue at the moment.
Видите, денег меня как игрока? Да хз, чуваки, я не знаю. Я в мобильные игры вообще никогда не играл. И... Некомфортно, короче, мне в мобильный телефон пялиться сидеть. И команда тренировалась мобильного PUBG, Dream Eaters, Godsend, Major Pride.
in this region.
And I hope so as well. I mean, I've said many times before, he's probably one of my
Это из таких,
players
типа,
from
более-менее
Western
известных.
Europe, which is, it does sadden me that he's not playing in Nexus's main roster. Number one fan, Mr. Blank. Yeah, so hopefully he can come back.
Как я дорос до модера у World of TG? А что, я разве модер у него? У меня даже у него в ТГ нет. До модера дорос я. Так, давай, Прок, давай на воду. Давай, блядь, сука. Давай нахуй на воду. Отлично. Отлично, еще один прок на воду, и меды будут забирать топ-1. Интерес Бобгу начал пропадать. Да и хз. Ну, потому что у нас регион сейчас АФКшит.
But I think Virtus Pro, TJB, Mad Bulls have accurately discerned the location.
I'm looking at this north side and seeing Pioneer and Na'Vi moving in at the same time on that western coast. You've got Game Lord, Big, and 4 Romanian men all on that north side behind them. I feel like this could get dangerous on the western side, the north of this next circle. A little bit of pressure on that south side, but not quite as much, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, I would say that there's definitely pressure now on 4 Romanian men, Game Lord, and Big.
Well, there's Eastern Stars as well.
Yeah, and Eastern Stars, just the 2 players there, so they're trying to make their way in. But, heading across this field is a very smart move from Na'Vi and Pioneer. I'm not entirely sure who knocked the initial player from Game Lord, but if it was either one of these teams, now moving forward this early rather than taking the fight just gives them so much onus on the fights going forward, because most of these teams have to cross that field or come down on the western coast towards Pioneer's location. Already you're seeing Big and Game Lord start to crash heads here.
Certainly are. I mean, Na'Vi just took a knock.
А, с прошедшим, да, кстати.
I think it was across from a compound to compound position. You can see them on the south
Там
side.
ДМР с ВПшками пересеклись. А где?
Should be all right, but it looks like Demuerte and Virtus Pro.
Что-то там вообще какая-то пиздарезка началась. Ну и, судя по всему, ВП сейчас выиграет этот файт, потому что они 2 в 1 остались. Если бы сейчас Страйкер нокнул одного, то maybe еще успел бы. Успел бы резнуть хотя бы. А так сейчас... Ну, чё вы стоите? Идите.
They did lose Yankee. They wish to bring Chulika back up, which means they need to get through this one. That's a good knock on that.
Обидно.
Oh boy. He just needs to really delay these reses. Chulika's slowly bleeding out, but this is doable for them.
That knock as well did get flushed on out. Chulika does have a little bit of time. You're right. That bleed out is coming through. Striker potentially wanted.
Бля, да почему СНГ коллективы не закусываются между собой? Великую резнуть сейчас. И хотел бы позвать тренера Яников, который на Маяве точно понял вместе с ним, что у вас такая бомба получалась вместе классно. Да, забей, не. Я думаю, если бы он захотел, он бы сам не написал, плюс он же сейчас, типа, непосредственно с чуваками работает, и я думаю, ему сейчас не до этого.
Without Beast holding that angle, it felt like Beast was in the right spot for it, but just didn't quite spot out effect.
Блять, Луздон все-таки съебался с воды, обидно. Я думал, все, наконец-то мы увидим пляж. Раньше зона часто прокала на пляж.
And the Mad Bulls disengage in the meantime.
Very tough circle here, John, honestly. Does give a little bit of a break towards these northern teams. Game Lord, unfortunately, did choose to try and head down on that western coast. Big were able to get ahead of them. In the way, though, you can see they've got themselves over towards that western side of the circle, and now Game Lord have to contend with Pioneer.
Бля, вот чел, ну что ты делаешь?
As they step up over towards that side from Na'Vi. They're currently outside the circle, so they'll have to make a move soon. Big does spot TJB, though, on a very big split at the moment.
Lin has a big old gun. I think it's a K9 in the pocket. Maybe trying to tap 1 or 2 of those headshots there. Across the way over towards Big. Could prove to be important. I feel like Na'Vi's rotation has been fairly straightforward up until this point, because Game Lord now crashing into them on the north side.
Так, Нави там с GLD сверху. Судя по расположению Нави, они их не пускают в зону. Да вот, Тигзи нокнули. Там еще пионеры помогают.
Hold off the remaining players from Game Lord. They were injured heavily from Pioneer, who's still taking shots towards his position. Remember,
эта хаешка должна сейчас взорвать.
Нет.
А, там будка. Вот Тигзи резнул хотя бы. Так, есть ног, отлично. От машины нокнулся. Ой, там пионеры еще подъехали, как не вовремя. Ну все, GLD, тут до свидания. Мне кажется, Навям сейчас надо подождать, пока GLD что-то будут делать. Навям надо всю ЛГшку отжать.
And hope to God that, you know, this fight starts to pop up between Pioneer as well as Na'Vi. This crash actually gave a great opportunity for Pioneer to get into position. Black-White tries to take an off angle, but Na'Vi's not so silly.
For Romanian men disengaging from oversight in that fight. Na'Vi potential respite from it. Ruthless Esports pushing up to the position. Pocus. Just on that ridgeline, two of his teammates are down and needs to find some sort of retribution, but the nade from Andre in the back is good, on the money. Now Ulysses, last standing for Ruthless, spotted out in the grass, has to duck back behind the ridgeland, and you think that he couldn't get out of this one. I don't feel like this is rescuable for the rest of the teammates. Ulysses
Матика нокнули.
Yeah, even if he is able to get back up again, his position's known.
Что там происходит вообще сверху? Опять не то показывают. Матик опять нокнули. Ой, какая зона хорошая для ВПшек и для медов. Там, по сути, играть-то больше негде. ВПшки закрывают все болото, а меды закрывают поле. Потом разыгрывают.
That nade's a little bit wide. Rana taken low, but Ulysses loses half HP. Rana down. Ulysses back to the deck, but the burn is on. The heat turned up now as Ulysses pops out. No more knocks to be found. 4 Romanian men stay alive.
You know, Ulysses has been very clutch recently for Ruthless Esports. Unfortunately, that was a very tough scenario that was laid ahead of him. He's not quite able to complete the mission for the rest of the team, but I will say, you know,
О, сейчас Нави на ВП поехали. Не, Навям здесь конечная, скорее всего. Пионерам здесь тоже. Да, сейчас, если пионеры выпушат Нави, ну что, вряд ли. Не, и Навям, и пионерам здесь конечно. Они не зайдут уже в зону никак. Можно попробовать на дурака кому-то пролететь в поле лечь. Но там меды на горке стоят. Хз, короче. Не-не-не-не-не-не. Вот, блять, на самом интересном, сука, выключили. О, минус Китсун уже. Там, по идее, двое остались. Там Тигзи и Мяку. Так. Патчи остался один. Минус Меку. Pioneer might be able to sweep this one up, or Nexus could take them down. Either way, that's less threat for them. A nade in from Meheat puts the fear on them. А поле, да, смотрите, все фришное. Я думаю, вот как я сказал, если сделать кому-то одному, просто залететь на дурака под сено, под трактор, под какой-нибудь. Можно было бы что-нибудь придумать. И патчи здесь все. Да, минус пионеры.
Yeah, for me, he has to be really careful, but that's ARB
Пиццу на
champions
один
come in from
остается.
behind, some nice shots along the way. There's some really long shots too, but it's the Mad Bulls are slowly moving up. Heard this third party and are here to, you know, take it all away from big.
Всё, и минус на эту даже. Да. Тут было читаемо. Так, а ВПшкам по мы зашли в спину. Знают ли ВПшки? Ой-ой-ой-ой-ой. Был бы с ганом нокнул. Повезло, что он с хаешкой в руке был. Найс! Бля, какая хая хорошая. Просто, блядь, мидейр ему идеальную кинул, ювелирную.
Throw there for Beast, honestly. He's not able to get the same arc as Effect is able to in that situation where he's much closer to the ridge line. And it's a bit more of a downhill. Virtus Pro, though, looking to hold off versus ARB champions there. 2 compounds held, Virtus Pro just outside the circle, but Mad Bull's taking that huge wrap on
А что, куда? А, просто сверху занять?
Или
Или чё? Или вы решили просто все уехать? Не совсем понимаю мув. Минус олдбой. Странная позиционка какая-то, очень странная.
With the teams all playing around this sort of pothole swamp here, it's kind of a kill zone going.
Да это, блядь, это не 1 в 3, не 1 в 2 было. Вы что, не знаете, что такое ситуация 1 в 3 заклачить? Или там вытащить 1 в 3? Когда вся команда стоит, закрывает. Когда вся команда стоит, закрывает. И каждый игрок там вносит урон, раскид дает. И, допустим, если один игрок даже всех убивает. Это не называется 1 в 4, чат, блядь, запомните. Это не 1 в 4 и не 1 в 3. Не путайте ситуации, когда реально, типа, идет розыгрыш там 1 в 2, 1 в 3, где ты переигрываешь там либо по жесткой стрельбе, либо по жесткому майндгейму. А когда ты фулл команды стоишь, принимаешь, и у тебя одному удается честь убить там 2 или 3, это не 1 в 3. Нет. Легчайшее для медов. Браво.
That is a really good knock there coming through from the Mad Bulls. Extremely needed. You know, if they could continue to delay both these teams making their way into the circle, you can see the blue is right at their back and it will push them just over the ridgeline into the sightlines of Mad Bulls. So a very critical knock coming through into VP, so they couldn't rotate into position fast enough. And now there's all eyes from Mad Bulls just sat in the line towards them. I think Shockwave and VP both understand that, you know, this is a second place fight for both of them.
It would take a miracle.
А, нихуя себе зона. Нихуя себе зона. Но мы это в тачке живые. Не, ВП здесь вряд ли выиграет, потому что ВП с двух сторон будут пушить сейчас. ВП сейчас тяжелее всех. Это лучше бы эта зона типа была ни для кого.
The issue is that there's so much attention split between Shockwave and VP that it's going to have to be really quick on the swivel to stop Mad Bulls from doing this. You can see them starting to throw the smokes out to clear some position in front of them. I'm just wondering at what moment will they hit that crate to try and set up some impromptu cover.
Utility separating Shockwave, Virtus Pro right now. Final 3 teams in the lobby. Looks like Nightmare wants to move forwards. Clear out VP if they can. Ссылка, not too many nades to play with. The Molly sent back their way as well. Look at the damage on that armor. Really hefty stuff. Difficult to play from this position. VP will try. Nades over the top from Shockwave. Mad Bulls across the way did take a little bit of damage, but they're safe for now. Nade to Ссылка. That might seal the deal for VP.
Yeah, Miz trying to just...
Все, ВП здесь вообще просто засек развалились. С двух хаешек. Бля, ну зона, конечно, максимально уебански прокнула. Если бы ВП хоть как-то бы сопротивлялись, возможно, мэды бы еще смогли что-то сделать, а тут, блядь, ну... Ой, зона, иди ты нахуй.
might have drawn the attention away. Monkey still suffering, and Shockwave, they have the terrain cover here. Sure, there's field cover, there's smokes as well, but the Mad Bulls are suffering.
I think the Mad Bulls should have identified this third party much sooner and sent the vehicles in towards that loot crate and just played along there and waited for Zone 8. This is a really big misplay from Mad Bulls, in my opinion. Now, Shockwave are able to efficiently drop down the smokes. Yes, they're really lacking on util now. There's 2 smokes there, which will be able
И зона
to
опять прокнула на SWT.
And you couldn't have wanted Mad Bulls to move
Вернее,
any
на
sooner
SW
in
просто.
Zone 7. And now Shockwave, with this next circle, are able to just basically wait out Mad Bulls, because Monkey's going to have to leave from that buggy, which is very visible. You're able to see him. And Skills was spotted earlier by Hakone, I believe. So Shockwave have all the information, the circle to play
Ну да,
around
кресты в
with.
дымах это, конечно,
It's
пиздец.
gone from playing for a second place to a really, really strong first place finish from Shockwave.
With 12 eliminations. Pan sent out into the field. Trying to spice things up. Pan deploy. Hoping to cook up an elimination or 2. 2 is what they'll look for. Mad Bulls taking every moment. This crate's still unlooted, by the way, so it could be a refresh.
Yeah, all Shockwave have to do now is just frustrate the players. Now, not keeping an eye on Skills there is a bit
Так,
of a mistake.
блядь.
It's a nade that
Вот
goes
сейчас,
over
если
top,
бы
which is a
нокнул.
little bit too long, especially with the terrain they're playing in.
Эх, спалили.
Can they hit it?
Ну ладно, хороший трай был.
Taken down. Now
Тут
just
зона
down to
реально
one
просто
player.
пидораска.
That was the angle they need to be careful of.
Yeah, that nade not being on the mark. Pretty heavy punishment there. And now Monkey out in the blue. Shockwave from the depths roll up that hillside and manage to take control of the field. Their baseline of fire too strong for Mad Bulls to cross. And it will be Shockwave taking home the chicken dinner.
Чё?
I mean, they just had
А почему показывают, что Mad Bulls выиграл?
to make a
Чё?
move with that one, John, but they just don't go for it there.
О, опять
It's very
фортнайтеры на месте.
confusing to me. Again, I will say this is a misplay from
Не, ну я
Mad Bulls,
согласен,
purely
Mad
because
Bulls
they had
здесь
the
выиграли.
vehicle advantage there to take up to the middle loot crate and actually set up some kind of impromptu cover versus the 2 teams that were just combating one another over there. And I think with the amount of nades you could hear going off, the shots here and there, and the fact they weren't moving up to take position, I think Mad Bulls just, again, they did a really good sweep on that western side and then did absolutely nothing with the space they were able to garner for themselves. Shockwave, though, I still can't take away from that win because it was very well done. I think this is the first time in a while that we've actually seen Shockwave step up so massively, and it's a really big win for them.
I mean, this is their first win, right, of the tournament so far. It's their first chicken dinner coming on through, which is absolutely brilliant. Starting the game, I believe, on 61 points at the start of this week's games. And that will careen them really quite far on up. We'll see how high they're able to go a bit later. But yeah, excellent news. Also, kind of excellent news for Mad Bulls, because a lot of those teams below
Блин,
them
почему
weren't really performing.
вот у наших чуваков фотки выглядят, как будто какие-то беспризорники стоят.
I still think this could have been a much more convincing win from Mad Bulls, unfortunately. But again, you know, you go for that consistency, John.
All right, well, there we go. Mad Bulls flushed out in the fields. Over to the desk.
Not bad. Finally, we get to see Shockwave, as I have just gone extremely ill for some reason, but we get to see them step up here and pick up a victory, a much-needed victory as well. We talked about Trazen on a team from Game Lord, now over to Shockwave. Fantastic to see this, man.
Yeah, I mean, as John said, they were on, what was that, 61 points before this game. They were in 17th position. If they want to play Livic at the end of the week, they needed a game like this. I think this might be their ticket to that Livic game at the end of this first phase. But that ridge, we were talking a little bit during that game there, Kalash, but like that ridge was in circle until the very, very last second. Even though Mad Bulls, maybe their timing was a little bit off, but beating a team that's in a ridge like that is just such a hard task to achieve.
Oh, definitely. They had a really good spot. I think what Blank was saying, I think Mad Bulls could have been even more aggressive, to be perfectly honest. I think
Осуждаю,
they
like.
could have tried to third party all of that situation.
Не одобряю.
Just as it happens, of course, getting that timing right is very finicky. You need to be kind of an ethereal ghost, just like Jason is currently.
Чё, вам пока,
to
может,
be able to get
накрыть?
that right.
Well, I'm waiting just to go to match rankings so I can fix it on my end, but I think they just want to enjoy this great face, you know, radioactivity. whatever. Anyways, yeah, let's actually see the match rankings. That would be nice to see how many points all the teams did get. Or maybe I've stunned the production team.
You know that weird
my
picture of Mark
face.
Zuckerberg where he's got that like this cream on his face, like he's on the beach or something. You look like that right now. That's what you remind me of.
You guys talk while I do some magic.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. But this game, especially towards this position here, the swamp position, a lot of fights were happening most of the time. And that was actually one question that was brought up during that game was the resources that were had by Shockwave was scared at some point they were not going to have enough. But the fact that they crashed like 3-4 teams and so many teams died in that position, they could easily pick up all the resources. So it was good. But yeah, unfortunately, one team that actually Jason was talking about a little bit earlier is that we haven't seen too much from Ruthless. Like, sure, they got himself that one big game on Orangle towards that Stolber finish, but other than that, Ruthless has been a little bit invisible this event.
Yeah, I want to see them do more, for sure, here. But I think with Shockwave taking this win, I feel like with Trazen on that roster and, of course, Terminus, I think it kind of a matter of time before they were able to eventually get a win, even though they kind of have been floundering in the past 3 days of gameplay overall. They did get a second, as well as a third, so some podium finishes go their way. But, I mean, once you get this kind of ridgeline, looking at the very end of the moment of that game, very easy for them to be able to close that out. So we've let Jason depart from this life. He is now gone for a moment, Max. It's just us now. Yes. How are you feeling, mate?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I don't feel threatened having Jason here anymore, no, so it's fine. I'm safe for the time being, but really, Mad Bulls, and that's a point that Blank did make before the end of that game, there is the Mad Bulls did a really good job of clearing all the West. They were waiting for the teams to like get involved in their own fight, try and push into the circle. You had, what was that, Nexus, you had Big taking a fight, and they just third party that, and the moment you do that, it's your position, because it's a field finish, you're not going to have too many teams in that location, so then just clear from the western side, get a second place was, I would say, very minimal eliminations this entire game, so it's actually really worth waiting for the third party to get all of our extra positions. So once again, shown that when it comes to macro in particular, they're very aware of their surroundings and know exactly what to try and get towards that finish line.
Yeah, I mean, Mad Bull's position that they had was one of the most powerful on that western side for quite a long time, because any further east than that spot, you end up in fields, and with what I think it was like 4 teams or so that eventually kind of tried to come in from that west side. How are you going to get past Mad Bull's spot, and then do you even really want to go past their spot? So you're almost kind of forced into these engagements, considering that there's really not that much lying east of them. But on the west side of all things, the fact that Virtus Pro, I feel like, you know, they've got Compa, actually a guy that I've known for quite a while, also coaching them. I feel like I see inspiration in their positions that they're taking off the back of someone like him and his influence. Because, I mean, those guys, the players alone have great map knowledge, but with his mind as well, that will also be able to augment that. I like what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of coaches that were picked up by quite a few teams actually going into this season, and it seemed like it's helped out quite a bit. But one team that could potentially use a coach to make some good changes here would actually be Eastern Stars, I would say. We're talking a little bit at the start of that game. Their drop towards the Stolber location, you can understand it, like normally they like to go for that Milter power position in particular, to go for that spot, and the playing path was not very good for that because it was from what, Severny down to like kind of the southwest side of the map. But they also in the past had a secondary drop that was the complete west coast of Orangle towards where Mad Bulls typically play, and it was where the circle was there actually. And they went to go for Stolber instead and lost instantly.
Лаваш принесу, у меня вроде оставался.
Secondary drop on the west coast because it's so good, and as you said during that game, there's a few god compounds you can have access to there, which I think would have been fantastic for Eastern Stars to go for. So hopefully they can revert back to that, because I really enjoyed that old split of Eastern Stars.
Yeah, it was, I think it was 4 Romanian men that were able to take them out quite swiftly up on top of that drop that they went for towards Stolber. So trades here and there, unfortunate for them. It really kind of sucks for me, because I was like, I want to see them continue to be consistent, considering what they brought in from the starting half of this phase, but not able to get the ball rolling just then. But Miramar is up next, Max, and I feel like Eastern Stars is able to do well there.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance they'll try and perform. But you know what?
Он у меня отобрал, я даже понять ничего не успел.
Вот
сейчас пойдет у него.
Real quick video to talk about the role of IGL.
Да на.
The IGL, or in-game leader, is the captain
Как же он жадно
on the
пытается
battlefield and the one
забрать.
who calls the shots. It's the IGL's task to come up with decisive strategies and solutions in real time, and the rest of the team is supposed to execute those to perfection. This role is not for everyone, because you need to deal with a lot of pressure, and you can't make any mistakes. It's not necessary that the IGL has to play as a support during fights. They might carry impeccable firepower and still be aware enough to make decisions for the whole team while engaged in a
Не, я
fight.
не боюсь, что они кота загрузят.
This is why it's mandatory to
Кошки
have a
похуй.
superior game sense and be able to detect threats that can't be
По
seen.
пола?
So,
Два
the
мальчика.
task of figuring out rotation paths according to the zone shifts naturally falls to them. Leading is a dynamic task, and there's no way to tell what makes a perfect IGL. While having a flexible approach might seem like a suitable option, IGLs must know their team's strengths and arrange their playstyle accordingly. Most IGLs prefer a democratic approach, where every situation is discussed among all the members as the IGL comes up with a final decision. However, this can also backfire in chaotic situations when your teammates are being impulsive. So having a unilateral approach is not a bad choice either. Remember, it's not always the IGL's fault that a member dies. It's a battle royale, and your survival is solely in your hands. The captain's job is to make sure that the team stays in the match no matter what, even if it costs the elimination of a member or two. Difficult times call for difficult measures, and having a disciplined chain of command is often the deciding factor between the winning and losing team.
Чтобы еще больше их стало.
Hey, look, I disagree. I think it's always the IGL's fault. If I die, at least, you know, Jason's the IGL, so if it happens, I would say it's his fault.
Wait, you would really say Jason's our IGL?
I just wanted to blame Jason for something. He's not here to defend himself.
Right,
You know? It's like, I have to throw some shade.
I'm not liking the idea of Jason dictating which rotations we go on. I'm not about that. That sounds rough.
Last time he was, I genuinely
Anyway.
said, Max, you stay in the blue. I was like, okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. But look, we're going to be looking at the map performances here for Miramar for some of these teams. And you were talking about Eastern Stars, if they can perform on this one. It is one of their top maps when it comes to their elimination average here. 6.25 throughout all of those Miramar. So far, they've played 4, if I'm not mistaken. So Eastern Stars definitely shown some consistency on this map already.
Yeah, definitely so. And as you're seeing with Nexus having that bump up, I think that is kind of slightly skewed thanks to the fact that they got a huge win off the back of Miramar at the very end of our last day of play in our first 3 days of the phase, with the win as well as 16 eliminations, right? So that definitely gave them a huge leg up compared to some of the other competition here. But I do like what they were doing with that win. They were holding down the fort well, that they were kind of isolated in, and then anybody kind of
А что они должны быть?
for arrival was quickly disposed of. So we'll see if Nexus can do that. But I mean, my eyes are also on Death Machine as well, because I think that they can kind of do similar things and can convert in similar ways.
Yeah, and we saw Unicorns of Love also having a really good average when it comes to their eliminations over on Miramar. Unicorns of Love still not on the level I think a lot of us expected, right? I think, though, especially with adding Crypto to the roster, I think we expected them to see them towards the top 5 position. They started off the day in 9th, so we'll have to see if they could potentially make it back up then this game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I8 is still in Pakistan also first, so apparently they didn't even really need Crypto, even though Crypto's a great signing or a great loan anyway. But never mind. It is time now to head over to the commentary team here to bring us the second match of the day. They're the top passers. It's John and Blank.
Oh, thanks very much for the pass. It's time to hit those 4Ks on this game, Blank. See if you can get those squad wipes. You look really pleased about that.
Не знаю, попробуй. Вроде должна работать.
Well, to be fair, look, sometimes I get 900 damage in my games, other times I get 4,000 damage in my games. It's just the way these things go. But unfortunately for me, exactly. Unfortunately for me, I do have my IGL in Kalaris, so sometimes that can go quite wrong for me because he's just off on the other side of a angle, and I'm forced to switch over towards him. Looking at this though, we are heading over to Miramar.
Что, может так вебку оставить?
So hopefully this time we have a bit more of a chilled out match here, and none of these hot drops.
Ладно, будут перерыв. О, драка, смотрите.
Time and time again.
Блять, ну вот опять.
Again,
Только драка началась.
Not quite on our screens just yet, but the playing path down from La Cabrera
Сейчас, возможно, опять
towards
начнется.
the south side of the map there, right in between Los Leones and Chumacera. So this is a really good circle for most teams. You get exactly where you want. Typically, you'd much prefer this vertical playing path as opposed to a horizontal one, just because you're able to get out to where you need to be much easier, especially if you want to play on that north side or the south side of the map.
most eliminations there. Mannequin still topping the tables for Codex. Codex.
Так, сейчас я их обратно загоню и...
Right, so this is their chance to
Вообще я хотел
recoup
покурить.
some of those points, some of that slip that they would have had after that first game. Eastern Stars in that second spot. Similar story for Death Machine coming into this game, right? They're both going to be looking to accrue as much as they can, regain on those players ahead of them. Mad Balls, they're set right at the top, but can they hold on to that spot at the moment between them and
Я пока
Eastern
наушники
Stars?
поставлю на
It's
зарядку, потому
a
что я их забыл
38-point
зарядить.
difference at this stage, just past the halfway mark.
It's a lot of points there. So for Eastern Stars, starting off the game pretty poorly with that slightly awkward drop towards Stalber that Max was talking about, saying that, you know, this is a very awkward drop, much rather than drop over towards that western side, take a secondary drop for themselves, rather than trying to force the mill to drop. I think that's much smarter here. For Mad Bulls, you know, if you're looking at your screen right now, these results are slightly wrong. We have played 13 matches for a couple of those guys. So they're not 169, they're 184 currently. Eastern Stars behind them at 146. So yeah, please ignore everything on the top side of the screen just for this game.
For the time being. Take Aim Gaming, again, in a hot drop situation against TJB this time around over near Hacienda. We've seen TJB win for this spot before, but if you step out the side of the tractor there, Lynn, it's not going to go your way. Tingsker with the M249, but a nice little sneaky bit of gameplay there. Tingsker spots the player around the corner, but the AKM just too much to handle. Swap out to the Scar, and it's a second. Excellent spray downs coming through from Happy.
TJB, honestly, this is a team that I feel just did not fare very well right at the beginning of games, especially if they get hot dropped on. They're so split a lot of times and they're focused on trying to get much more control across the map. GK First, I think, is the only one who's capable of doing anything in this kind of situation, but already laid low, at least picks up 1 point for the team. Happy days, at least. GK First, once again, coming in clutch, so they'll go for that 0-point game.
Death Machine's first game this week. And we're there, low already inside the buildings. 2 eliminations already coming through. And sprays towards the door. They know exactly where in the building he is. And that will be the end of it. Modi picks that one up. Pushes on for more. 3 eliminations and only 1 player standing for ARB and Picardo.
Oh my, it's all over the place, John. I can't catch a break at the moment. Ruthless Esports over towards Pioneer. Already finding 1. And this is interesting considering this was the fight between, you know, Big and Pioneer. Big this time pieced out towards that western side. Instead, it's Ruthless Esports coming up against the Pioneer team. 55 players at 3-minute mark, John. What is happening?
It's getting pretty hot. You were talking about maybe a little bit less of those hot drops, but Blank, I think you might be wrong on that count. Jamaz around the side, UMP, but it's not going to be enough. Tommy Gun from Death Machine to shut it all down. ARB losing out on Picardo and the rest of this game.
Yeah, Death Machine has been getting a lot done recently over towards Picardo, just purely against ARB. They've been getting the better of them, and I think for ARB, it might even be time to consider dropping elsewhere, or at least try and drop further away from Death Machine at the moment, just purely with how well Death Machine are kind of controlling these angles a lot of times. It is awkward because it is going backwards and forwards here, and neither team is willing to break away from Picardo, but this gives a good opportunity for Death Machine, who have had their best stats being placed here on Miramar, albeit they've had a couple of games with fairly decent circle look. But that's to be expected when you drop in Picardo, right? You have the center of the map, you can pick a very strong position towards the middle, and then more often than not, you know, you're hoping, if the circle's kind to you and you get a lot of central shifts and not too many hard shifts, you are going to get that center circle.
That's what you're looking for.
Наушники забыл.
Seems like things have taken a small breather. It's the teams that really hot dropped have all now departed. 2 teams down this early. I mean, you were talking about 55 players now down to 54. 14 teams now in the first 5 minutes. 4 eliminations for Take Aim Gaming, 4 eliminations for Death Machine.
Привет, Лазанья, напиши мне в директе в Инстаграме. Запрещенная в России организация экстремистской. И в Телеграме напиши мне. Ссылка в описании есть.
Last game losing a couple of players towards those latter parts of the circle. I don't think that's too much of a lot of these teams' faults, honestly. With the circle,
Так, Ицун, да, давно их знал. Они же играли еще с Матиком до этого.
And now Ruthless Esports, who now control a lot of this central position. Back when they were giants.
Дискорд не рассмысле одну раскрывает. А кто вообще в Дискорде общается? Ну, в смысле, переписываются. Какие-то деловые вопросы кто в Дискорде решает? Я Дискордом как мессенджером не пользуюсь. Я там пользуюсь, чтобы просто поиграть с кем-нибудь и... Ну, и касательно игровых моментов. А все всякие деловые штуки обычно Телеграм или Директ.
Many different iterations, so I had to go through all of them. Miramar was kind of the stomping ground. They had some very, very decent off angles and crossfires they like to take on the roads.
Да, с крысами, с крысами. Пока временно.
Shockwave coming off the back of their chicken dinner. Have some high ground against Codex's position downhill.
Какая Эвелина, а какая еще может быть?
That is Vito that it was scoping in on there. Still, a lot of cover in this compound from up on high. Should be safe for now. And the rest of Codex are moving in to back up the position.
Yeah,
Эвелина,
he's right on the front side of it now.
Эвелина, Узбексила, Узбексила.
220 meters, 230. So Trazen can see him. We had that hard cap at 300 meters, being able to see enemy players unless they're rotating in vehicles. So at the moment, Trazen can spot him out. It will be a difficult hit if he's not running a DMR and something like an M4.
Конечно, с хуем. Ну, типа, это же точно такая же, только с хуем. А хуй никогда лишним не бывает. Хуем прикольней. Веселее будет. А у меня есть клинфит. У меня есть клинфит, но я специально включаю комментаторов, чтобы не так скучно было. Потому что если будет клинфит, там будет будут тупо звуки игры.
Yeah, the time to kill on that range will be a little bit too high to not allow a Codex to get back to cover, right? So probably going to leave that one well alone, just get away with that information and maybe suppress the position, right? I mean, even if you're not going for the kill, you can go for that suppression, but that's the question: do you want to give away that position in order to slow down?
Ладно, почему пионеры не заняли будку? А, ну у них с заправкой сплит. Вон. Если будет Корка и Дискрим игра улучшится, ну, наверное, да, потому что, как бы, они же играют вместе, сыгранные, а тут они двух Синдинов взяли. Вообще хрен пойми, кто такие. Так, чё, зонка? Давай на дорогу вниз. Что-то здесь, наверное, будет, там уже вон они шарят, занимают. Я сейчас хардшифт. А, ну или у ДМРов на горке закончится, где вот этот ангар. Короче, это нижняя часть дороги уже будет, походу, сотка.
It is nice to see, though, again, big applause to Unicorns of Love, big love to Unicorns of Love, considering we've kept a very similar roster this time, and instead of, trying to completely re-change the game, they've just added some...
Не, здесь же 20 команд играет. Вот здесь топ-16, они проходят финал. Но здесь без супервиков только. Здесь сначала групповая стадия играется, а потом стадия финала. Еще топ-12 проходит на Ливик. Дополнительная карта. Которая будет... Поинты с которой тоже пойдут в зачет, чтобы в финал пройти. Так не, а супервика уже отказались. Я же, по-моему, говорил уже на прошлом стриме. Кодексы без тачки, что ли? Не, он там тиммейт подъезжает.
I think the difficulty of X Team is, everyone gave them so much praise after I think they hit the highest scoring game in the entirety of PMPL Western Europe history. And then just...
Я на позапрошлом говорил, да я, по-моему, на каждом стриме. Кто-то задает вопрос про супервики.
just looking realistically, John, I don't think this team is that amazing. I think Beg for Mercy is probably the only guy on that team that I have too much faith in. But I think even for him, there seems to be a little bit of burnout after that last PMPL West.
Я бы же играл первую игру.
Practically all on his shoulders to get his team throughout a lot of those games.
Че, по Нави, думаю, да, все нормально будет. Они разгоняются по ходу турнира. Чел добивать пошел сразу, понятно. Вот так вот. Манекен кинул хаешку и не поменял позицию. Или он что, он пикнул оттуда и не поменял позицию.
Yeah, it's a good play from Nightmare. Moves back after hearing the pin from the grenade. Folly realistically just wants to provide himself a little bit of room before moving up. And Nightmare's back up to full HP there.
А, эти челы на 20-м месте, я понял. Что-то кодексы их испугались. Но ясен хуй, они не видели, с кем они файтятся. А куда они, отъедут на горку сейчас или куда?
That knockover onto Vito on Codex, I feel like was the really pivotal moment of that fight. If Codex gets through that window, that fight goes completely differently. But X team managed to push on through, managed to take that initiative, get on in, and this is good. This is a change.
Нави с ДМРами рядом играют. Кстати, ух, ебать, какая зона, ё-моё. Что-то я, даже я здесь проебался. Вот это хардшифт. Ты, Нави, они решили сыграть какой-то веки снизу, потому что они такие зоны играли похожие, и они всегда их играли вот... Блядь, что? Они их всегда играли, по-моему, вот отсюда откуда-то. Или отсюда. А сейчас они решили сыграть, ну, как, чтобы идеально заехать под прошлый прок, чтобы на будущее играть где-то здесь. А зона взяла и съебалась хуй пойми вообще куда. Ну как это играть? Вот и как тут угадывать, блядь?
Unicorns love taking a couple of shots from TKN Gaming, but they have cover, they have angle, and they're in the circle comfortably on the west end of Picardo. Doing well for now.
Yeah, I think that a lot of these teams are going to be having a bad time going forward. I think for Demuerte, they were extremely happy about 30 seconds ago and now extremely unhappy. Just because we had that hard western shift and then usually we shift back over towards the eastern side. So for teams like Unicorns of Love, who have been trying to make their way down from Hacienda down towards Picardo, you know, they're really happy taking up these warehouses and don't have to move too much. Death Machine, who putting their way outside of Picardo, again, it's that central position I was talking about earlier. It really does benefit them in terms of getting that circle. So less circle look, but more just put themselves in the right place at the right time. Codex sees down towards Ruthless, but what can they really
для Кодексов пиздец какой подарок с такой зоной. Они принесли в жертву манекена, чтобы прокнула зона. Координаты чего? Прикоп?
With the high ground somewhat occupied, might be difficult to push on in. Narvi as well to the north side of Montenuevo after having rotated down that way. Just stimming up, heavily looted there. You see Tixie on the 333s. Looking pretty healthy.
Yeah, curious using the barrel as well. I think that, you know, Navi is probably one of the teams where I've seen the most variation in terms of weapons usage, from DMRs to the barrel itself, which hits extremely hard, that M762. You know, with the M4, you're looking at, I think it's 4 to 3 bullets, where, you know, the M762 can do it in 3 with 1 neck shot. So I think that when you see that, it's dangerous, much harder to control the M4.
Ой, Нави неудачный кемп выбрали. Ну ладно, это лучше. А, они вообще не в кемп, они на город разбили. Вообще пул обратно закрутили. Пиздец, да, конечно, ротация, не завидую Нави. Ну ладно, ну спасибо, ебать, хоть сейчас зона, что ты не съебалась. Наверное, тогда перед собой просто челиксов надо выбить, и все будет круто. Это будет сейчас решающий файт. Ну тут также еще ДМРы вроде ехали. Видел, что они в эту сторону тоже крутили.
I think, you know, it's nice that we moved over to Na'Vi because I did want to talk about them before I got really stuck into the M762 debate there. But I did really want to talk about them.
За медийной футбольной лигой нет, не смотрю. Что вообще такое? Окей, Лазань, отвечу.
Not losing people out in the blue nice and early. I think that, you know, they did have some troubles in that first half of phase one, but despite all that, you know, they've come back kicking here, and I think it's hard to come back from mental loss like that.
Это предикты пошли. На Eastern Start двое поставили. И один чел на Нави. Блять.
Coming up against Death Machine, NASA's already down the floor. There's nades in front of them, making it very difficult to head over towards our happy.
Jason backing up Na'Vi as well with the prediction.
Как тебе игра 200-недельных ФП? Да пока норм. Ну, в основу они бы, наверное, лучше играли, но в целом пойдет. Что пионерам делать? Чё, кого, куда вообще подъезжать? Под гору, наверное, слева куда-то. Я слева уже никуда не подъехать. Если прям вот под саму гору, там вроде тропинка такая есть. На тропинке можно попробовать с тачками посейвиться.
Will spot Atlas. There he goes. In the buggy already, though, and might be able to get back to safety if these bullets don't land, but that's a lot of damage already. Will isolate the angles there and reduce the number of unicorns that can spot out this position. Athis back to safety, even up to take this swing out from Rollkiss.
Honestly, really good trigger discipline from Icy there. You know, with that kind of send from Athis, he's going over open ground. There's only one reason why he'd do anything so, you know, deliberate as that, is that he's got teammates waiting in the wing. So Icy only goes for a couple of sprays before backing off again. Nexus, though, in a rough spot with Virtus Pro right on their tail.
And they've got Death Machine and Take Aim Gaming both looking to push in, potentially behind on this position if they get diverted by Ruthless.
Сейчас прок будет. Кстати, ДМР вообще в full фришнер гарды. Доебать зона пьянка, конечно. Я пьянка. Кодексам пиздец подарок. Ну, слева уже никто не зайдет сюда. Надо просто вот сюда фокусить. Я сейчас про кодексов говорю. ДМР не будут раньше времени подниматься. Да, обидно, конечно, если бы сейчас кодексы фулкой сидели здесь на горе, они бы, блядь, такой фулл фарм устроили. Гонзо не вывез косфайт здесь. Ты предикнул ДМР, понял.
Just falls a little bit to the side. Crypto now down. Icy stands up for the unicorns, trying to get these knocks onto Kapahala, which he will be able to do, but there's too many men on the hillside, and Eastern Stars sweep them out.
It's 4 eliminations. It's well done from the awkward beginning with Athis there. He's able to send across with a support from Bazzi. And I think that, you know, for Eastern Stars, if anything we learned from them over the first half of phase one is that as a team, this is probably one of our most collected units within the lobby at the moment, which is very odd for me to see considering last season they were so disconnected.
Хорошо долетело.
immediately takes down 2 of the players there from Death Machine, and Nexus tried to make a getaway in the meantime, and they do it in the party bus.
Well, they're going to be celebrating that one. Getting out with 2. On the north side as well, Na'Vi and X team are clashing. The south melee continues. Everybody on their south edge does need
Кого откуда кикнули? Я хуй знает вообще сам.
Eastern Stars sweeping out that eastern side might have a good shout into the next.
Кого там кикнули, кого не кикнули? Мне вообще похуй.
Ruthless Esports now behind the curve on progression.
Yes, this is a super awkward spot to play in this circle. You don't have a lot of room to play around with. Chulika going head-to-head with Ruthless Esports. Ulysses gets taken down on the backside, though, and now Nade comes over the top into the smoke. That's a Molotov. Try and prevent any reses coming through. Chulika is hit with a nade of his own, and it's just playing along these corridors. It's just awkward.
Na'Vi did manage to get back up to 4, as did X team on the northern side, as these nades traded out. Chulika, that's a lot of damage. You do not want to be there.
Чё? Где дэмэдж-то? Просто 0 дэмэджа. Вот здесь на Олда большая надежда, потому что у него очень важная позиция. Нормально, вроде дефается. Только без ноков, пожалуйста. А чё, а в зону-то они как будут заходить? Они подумали или нет? Или они уже все, типа, с концами? На киллах решили. Норм на ДМР прокнула. Красава, Денис. Зная результаты, сказал предикт. Ай, блядь.
And a third party from Shockwave came into that as well, coming in from that western edge. And now X team are under pressure, getting eliminated as well. Shockwave sweep up 2 teams on the northern side. All 4 of them are alive, and off the back of a win, their confidence is going to be at all-time high.
This is very, very different plays coming through here. The guys on Shockwave. Circle does envelop PNL, but Yankee immediately has to move. 2 first aid kits, but Athis and Eastern Stars, they've got oversight. Fortunately for them, there's also another team looking.
Как же ВП сейвится? Бля, вот у него смог есть. Чё он тебе, сука, смог не кинет и не сыграет?
Supersonic is going to be ringing out across the field, so you don't want to stand up for too long lest you lose your head.
О, догадался. Когда ВПшки пробежали уже. Нет, чел, просто иди, блять, фанты попей. Просто попей фанты.
Also knocked. Virtus Pro are just finding these angles. Absolutely on the swivel. Redox definitely spotted there. Chulika puts the nade in, but now the last player from Nexus under pressure, Yankee, swings on up. They know that that ridgeline is suppressed by those knocks, but Shockwave are there as well. KMA spotted out in this.
А ДМР просто стоят, чилят, ничего не делают. Все сами себя позакрывали. Ну хоть там и ДМР киллов показали сейчас, 0?
Virtus Pro with some extremely good mechanical play. Let me add that in very quickly. Who are stepping up and taking shots so accurately over the ridge there and getting some headshots onto Eastern Stars. You know, with that placed in, at that point in time, Eastern Stars finds it very difficult to go for any kind of reses. Не, ну тут да, тут напрокало пиздец. Ну они норм проехали под ангар, типа это единственная нормальная ротация была, ну и все. Все, это типа это все ротации за игру. И то удивительно, почему ангар был фришный. Ну, 0 киллов. Ну ладно, ничего страшного. Поинты не пахнут. Точнее, топ-1 не пахнет. Smokes are down, Molotovs are sent across. This is smart play from both teams to disengage, seeing that next circle.
Зато прям full open прокнуло.
Imagine that the calls have come in to back off and drop smokes in to deny sightlines to Muerte, considering they have to move off. It's extremely good ridgeline they currently hold. English, though, who's been a major star for Muerte.
Так, один есть уже.
One of the players from Shockwave. I think that's an instant flush as well. They want to limit the amount of members that they're going against in the remainder of.
Вы видели, какая хаешка? Она прям, блядь, в троих пролетела, просто 0 дэмэджа. Что за текстуры охуенные?
Shockwave getting tagged on the hillside. Trazen down as well. Just Hakoni now for Shockwave. And Virtus Pro still up at 3, but they need to get some healing done.
It feels just a little bit too aggressive there from Shockwave, considering they really didn't have to move at all. Fleek looking for a little bit more. Hakoni does spot him moving across, but look at the bullets flying over towards Hakoni's way. He can't step up for a single second. This is really good control from Duarte. But now, Virtus Pro, they're pushing.
Aggressive, 2 down, 3 down. Oh, sorry, just Old Boy remains. I thought he was down, but no, not out just yet.
Топ-3 для ВП. Ну, они нормально. 10 киллов сделали. Хороший результат.
Old Boy goes down, so just Hakoni for Shockwave against 4 from Duarte over the hillsides. They know where he is. Striker repositions up to the high ground, trying to take the 1v1s, but he's not going to make it work. Shockwave down. Duarte take Miramar.
Так, и сколько они киллов всего сделали? 4? Бля, бандиты на Пашу техник. Посмотрите, это просто Паша техник, блядь. Ой, ща. Во. Теперь сюда смотрите. Похоже? Блять. Какой же пиздец. Как? Бля, надо вырезать, короче. Бандита, блядь. Ладно, похуй. Ну так вот.
Peeking over the top to try and get ED on that analysis are also the guys over on the desk who will be sending it over to right now.
У меня код
Okay, well,
откинулся.
gentlemen,
Где?
yeah, that's right. It's James, it's me, Jason Kaplan, the host.
Да не
It's back.
откинулся вроде.
I'm back. Yeah, no, it was great to see Duarte get the win, but we do have obviously to talk about the elephant in the room. The zones were definitely favorable towards them.
Yes.
Бандос что у них делает? Да хз
I
вообще.
don't like breaking down games like that, but they had the circle. No one was really willing to contest because they just couldn't. And from the very start of the game, they jump in.
Вам пока.
They're just solo on the western side. There's not much you can do. Some teams had some good fights. They're trying to climb their way up the hilltop. Virtus Pro in particular had a very, very good amount of fights they were taking, but then the circle was just too in favor of Demuerte. So the win does come their way. 7 eliminations, no still good conversion rate, but it's because not many teams were around them. They couldn't get those big, 15 elimination games. Here was just a small win for the side of Demuerte.
Yeah, and Claris, I think actually Virtus Pro is probably one of the more interesting talking points here because they did have to play around from the southern side of those zones and obviously rotate up towards the east like Eastern Stars did. But for them to get, a third place plus 10 eliminations, I think for me, that's more impressive than Demuerte getting the win.
Yeah, they had to walk through fire in this game, I think is fair to say. When you look at how you have a lot of teams collapsing onto the spot that they already initially had along that kind of ridge line at the bottom of it, and then had to fight them, and then had to fight whilst they're moving up it as well, and then take out Nexus as they go up towards the top of that. So yeah, a lot of eliminations had to go their way, or any team's way, to try and make it through that channel of into the circle later on. So I don't know, I feel like Virtus Pro keeps kind of impressing and impressing, even when they're not getting themselves the victories, they're finding themselves in hot situations that they're winning out, and that's exciting to see.
The thing is Virtus Pro are looking so aggressive now. That's what we keep bringing up when we're talking about the CI teams, is that when they have a fight and they can take it, they will be normally come out on top a lot of the time. And you can even see here, for example, a fight early game between TJB and Take Aim Gaming, where TJB, I'm going to have to say this again, unfortunately, but I still don't see that synergy. They just feel like 4 players in the same team. They don't feel like a team just yet. And I think that that's why we're seeing a lot of teams just capitalizing on the hot drop and just getting those 4 easy eliminations early game. So still need to see TJB get up there. But other than that, Eastern Stars, we both predicted them Kularis in this game, and they had a really good entry point to the east, but And Virtus.pro was still there, and they really popped off on the end.
Yeah, I feel like their entry point was taken a little slowly by them, where I think maybe it could have been taken a bit faster, and then maybe from there on out you can try and make something happen. But it was the circle shifting away from them towards De Muerte compared to, you know, centering up and maybe giving them something to play with wasn't quite there for them. So a bit rough for them, but at least they were able to have a commanding presence up there for a while on the east side. I think that's kind of what we were leaning towards to see if they were actually going to be able to make something happen from that. Just didn't happen.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that we might be obviously saying that De Muerte, they got the zone so many times, it was kind of an easy win for them. But it's still important to note at least that when you do, or when you are gifted a zone like that and you have to get gifted the position that you have, that you better make sure you win that game. And yeah, they didn't get a ton of eliminations, but they locked it down. That's a great sign for them. Obviously things are to get more difficult though if Virtus.pro obviously had
Окошко просто сидит и просит, пока я ее покормлю.
Посмотрите, close things down, and we should focus on their players really quickly because we haven't really had the opportunity to so far. But I'm curious about their player stats across the board and see who the big standout players were. And Flyky, 760 damage, 3 eliminations again, considering the position they had, not too bad.
Flyky and Striker this game in particular really showing up. And as you said, even though they got the circle given to them a few times in a row, it is still not a given task to get that win right. You still need to try and zone teams away. And that's what they were doing. They were doing it versus Shockwave, they were doing it with their nades and mollies.
Конечно, я, блядь, крыс подбираю под цвет кошки.
Make sure they keep 100% ownership of the circle. Heikoni did get through for Shockwave in the circle, but regardless, it's just one player. Is not going to be a major issue for you. But yeah, good from Flyky and Striker to get himself on top. Do you say Flyky or Flikke? I want to say Flikke, I don't know why, but sounds good. Yeah, sounds good to me. Maybe it's just my French. Yeah, I think that's my French coming through. Like, I really want to say Flikke, but it sounds right.
It's just weird.
Yeah. And then, well, how would you say the last player's name?
Dadaev.
Dadaev.
Oh, yes. Probably right.
I should leave that to the jingle master, to be honest. I should try to do any of that. Okay, well, we're talking about De Muerte. We talked about Virtus.pro a ton. Again, I want to hop actually into Virtus.pro's player stats to see who is standing out for them, because we obviously talk about the big names within the team. And it's actually going to not be Old Boy leading towards the top, which is surprising. But then also it's surprising they got 10 eliminations with basically not having Mur playing in that game.
I'm stoked that we're seeing someone else than Old Boy. No, Old Boy, love you. You're doing great so far. You were one of the top players throughout the first 3 days. But seeing Tulika, seeing Yankee with a Brim this time around, actually popping off. Really stoked to see 2 other players play next alongside to Old Boy in particular. So that is great. I think Mir is the player that we haven't seen too much from the team. But if we can see every single one of these players step up, which is what we've been seeing recently when it comes to these fights, I'm telling you, they could make in the championships and they could qualify to PMGC that way. Currently, this is the top team that would put on my radar that can compete with the Turkish teams in the championship to go qualify that way in the PMGC.
And these numbers ending up the way they are, these are rough fights to constantly be taking on Miramar. I would argue some of the most rough locations to be taking fights on. You're constantly on edge, constantly like, okay, who's over the next rock? Is there a guy just being a snake across the next rock? Because you have to be absolutely quick on the trigger to be able to take these fights importantly. So yeah, very well played by them, considering, yes, you don't get the victory, but being able to just get up on the high ground alone was a feat in itself.
Okay, well, 2 minutes and 50 seconds left to go here. Let's see overalls really quickly before we head into our third match of the day, which will be our only Sandhawk. We do have Mad Bulls still in first place. Eastern Stars there in second, but we haven't seen Mad Bulls really... I was going to say not really run away with it, but they were out the last match because of the groups, and then the first match they did relatively well. But we're seeing Virtus.pro, though, more importantly, 3rd place.
Yeah, they started off in 6 at the start. They're already in 3rd, and they're only 2 points behind the Eastern Stars. There's a chance they could also compete for first place, because Mad Bulls has been a little bit topsy-turvy throughout the day today. So Virtus.pro could be currently first place, which unfortunately for the original Western European teams, that means that the top 2 teams would be CIS teams. And then I think it's getting a little bit more close in line with our expectations that CIS is going to dominate. It took a bit longer to get there, but I think we're slowly but surely getting to the point where CIS teams are going to be a lot towards the top.
Yeah, but I think we expected Na'Vi to be one of those top 2 teams, not Mad Bulls and Virtus.pro, to be honest, because we know the track record of Na'Vi. They've yet to get a win here so far, one of the few teams, unfortunately, for them. But Na'Vi, I mean, 39 eliminations, and I know we keep hammering on them, but because we expect them to be such a big team in this region and technically the world, they have still been extremely quiet.
Yeah, they need to be louder. I don't know how else to describe it, as you say, like, with what they've done.
О, драка.
X-Team's too good.
Louder, guys.
I mean, to be fair, right? Na'Vi we expect a lot out of, but also big. I am expecting a ton out of
Да
him.
какую игру
And
там
he
через
and
полторы
co have
минуты
been
старт уже будет?
definitely struggling. I know, I think he made
Или
a
ты имеешь в
post
виду
around, like,
вообще
the first
как-нибудь?
couple of days, and hopefully they worked past those issues they were having. But I wanted to see more out of them. I want to see them step up here because Big for me was one of those original contenders I was looking at to represent Western Europe in the EU regionals. But gentlemen, it is time to head into our third match today. It is on Sandhawk, so let's throw it back over to John Howard and Blake.
Don't know why James looks so terrified there on the end. Calaris, you know, he's gonna be alright. He's gonna be alright. Don't worry.
Да не, я когда игры стримлю, не смотрит никто.
Ban can hurt you, and it's coming, so you better be terrified. That
Не
thing
вижу пока
walks
смысла
around
в
the
этом.
map. You know, you've seen the wooden structure there, but what you don't know is it's actually some
Через силу я
form
играть не
of
хочу.
Autobot, and it actually assembles and then walks across the map, and that's the new game mode that's incoming, and you have to fight it as a full 99 squad. But that's not coming for a little while yet, so you just have to wait and see. I promise. I'm getting in touch with the developers right now. But yeah, we're heading over towards Sandhawk, which is a bit more of a crazy map here. There's a lot of different rotations that can happen, but so far from Miramar and Erangel being so incredibly hot, John, I'm a little bit worried about Sandhawk coming into this one because there's going to be a huge amount of teams hot dropping. There's going to be fights popping off all over the place. Maybe not in the first couple of minutes, but who knows? Bootcamp Paradise Resort, the Mad Bulls, maybe even going for this one. I do wonder if the Virtus Pro are playing this one. I think they are. But yeah, so far, going from 6th to 3rd, just behind Eastern Stars. Eastern Stars have really not been able to, you know, get some movement happening this time. They've been just bogged down in the sludge jump.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Need to get those bog waders on. Make sure it doesn't get into the trans, because that just gets you soggy socks, and that is no fun for anyone playing.
I hate soggy socks. That's why I just don't wear socks. I just wear wellies, nothing else.
That's fair. That's fair. To be fair, anything soggy.
Obviously, other clothes.
Anything soggy, just kind of don't want it, you know?
No, I hate it. Oh boy, there, most
О, он сейчас прыгать
25.
будет. Хотите поржать?
Moneyken's really not being able to, you know, pump up
Сейчас,
those numbers
это надо видеть. Он будет прыгать.
But it is
Как
still old boy who's just
Он что-то не хочет пока прыгать.
ranking his way up. And so far, you
Вот,
know,
смотрите.
he's been trapped away in his little brick wall room, and he's been practicing
давай.
on those brick walls, punching away,
Давай,
punching
чел.
away, and now he's been released.
Красава.
Ready to go out of these other teams in Western Europe. See Mad Bulls at the top there, 184 points. They will be playing this match, dropping over towards Paradise Resort as usual, and Virtus Pro heading all the way over towards Camp Bravo and Mong Nai to get looted up nice and early. So very close over towards the Mad Bulls, so there could be a little bit of a scrap going on there, but we'll have to see if that does come into effect. This time around though, no other teams in towards boot camp, so no Pioneer.
Не, зона заебись, да, под Нави, кстати.
Have decided not to drop
Navi
on those
всё
northern
good.
warehouses. The Arabian champions actually did try and hold that one out with Omar over towards that north side as well, just in case the death.
А чего страшного, это же крысы обычные, блин, чего их боятся? Они тебя больше боятся, чем ты.
TJB, they've gone
Более это домашние крысы, не уличные.
Than we're used to seeing them. I mean, they have changed that previously. That is an adjustment that they made last week, but it's good to see that one sticking. Na'Vi drop fairly aggressively, I would say, towards Big on that northwestern island, right? This is really quite into Big's territory near Camp Alpha. Both of them do drop on this island, sure, but can be risky. And Na'Vi actually with one of their players close to 3 of the big players.
Yeah, there's been too many times so far where Na'Vi's dropped like just scattered across the mountain and then slowly been picked up by other teams. Fortunately, Kitsune will be taken down. The first
Там по Нави уже минусанули.
So again, not a strong start for Na'Vi, and they open things up around on that northwest island for themselves. Big this time dropping down towards that southwest side as per usual, and by usual I mean last season usual. So far it's been a little bit difficult for them, especially with Eastern Stars up towards Hatin. This time around their Game Lord takes a little bit more space on that side of the map with Eastern Stars not playing. So there's a lot of different dynamics.
Они, походу, увидели, что это сплит. Ну, они поняли, кто это упал. Поехали фастом по одному душить.
The most times, in my opinion.
Gotta be adjustments made. You want to be taking these ones down. Nobody currently on the central hills on that northwestern island. Nobody on those compounds to the east side of it. it seems like these river crossings kind of uncharacteristically unoccupied right now.
Опа.
For a Sandhawk.
Здорово, чел. Ты чё, блядь, загулял, что ли?
Is going to be the target for vengeance here for Meku, and we'll get flushed on out.
Ой-ой-ой, они прям сейчас наебало заедут.
Two of their players up into the buggy and up in arms.
Интересно, Матик видит всю эту движуху? Отлично! Живи! Хорошо, блядь, сосать! На одном хп. Мог, конечно, не рисковать. Сейчас могли Меку нокать, но похуй, ладно, нормально. Привет, Санжар, да, пойдет? Давай. Отфисти его. Там в жопу ему кулак.
Perhaps even a compensator, I'm not sure there, but that's really all you need, and then it's good to go. It does have a slow fire rate, but if you hit that initial headshot, which I believe Meku did in that situation, it's just another body shot there, close range, without the helmets or the vests available to you this early in the game, and you're going down. So it's really important that Meku did pick up that first one, and then with the crossfire available, they're able to finish.
Они на него поехали, потому что Нави всегда распультованы. Они заехали на лицо. Если бы они сразу его нокали, возможно, да, успели бы. А так, сколько он отошел за дерево и дал нок на подъезде.
But Na'Vi don't skip a beat after losing that first player and immediately send on for the crossfire in that triangle formation. So I will say, you know, huge props to Na'Vi there to be able to hold on to that side. Unfortunately, down to 3 players. Sandhawk, you really do start to thrive with the 4 intact, but 3 is still enough.
Meku got the first. Yeah, look at that. Very, very early, the knock there. I think it was just a couple of body shots, but maybe a lack of armor on the side of Big. Finishes off with the 1-2 punch. This is the thing, though, right? Na'Vi, they're good in the fight. We know that about them. We've seen that. Even their players can go 1v2 and still come out on top. Their setups for battles are really, really solid. The issue is that they're getting caught time and time again. And we've seen that here, right? Down to 3, you've said it. They're playing a little bit maybe too far towards Big. They're tempting fate when they don't need to.
А кто это у нас тут перебежать решил?
I think there's adjustments being made though with the rotating lobby, John. I think this is the major issue.
Вот опять, вот опять. Вот опять, вот опять. Это вот то, о чем я говорил на первой игре, что это не 1 в 3 было, это не 1 в 3.
Mountain, but unfortunately for them, you know, you're having Mad Bulls rotate in on this location. Big usually plays up towards that northwest side. Eastern Stars in Hatin. You don't know if Game Law is coming across. So for Na'Vi, it's a little bit too late to be moving away from the northwest side and completely change their drop spot, because it's going to hamper them too much in phase 1 at this point in time. But they just have to be more careful with it. And I think there, though, again, it's that mental reset which feels to be coming into effect, where, you know, you lose that first player, but Na'Vi brushes it off very simply, like you would just a fly on the shoulder, and easily regroups and reassesses the scenario. So I think for Na'Vi, yes, they're getting caught out, but at least now that that's idea of, you know, they're not just laying down and taking it anymore. It's a case of standing back up tall and getting back into fighting position.
See how well they can fight on out for the rest of this Sandhawk. They've rotated down to the side of that northwestern island, so playing on those compounds, ready to cross should they need it, because the circle is centered on that confluence, right? That junction of the rivers that is notoriously tricky to cross late game.
Завтра ролик один стриме побегов. Ну да, это вот примерно из этой же серии. Если вы понимаете, о чем я.
Cut up towards the northeast, south, northwest, and you're kind of hesitant to move away from those positions just in case that, you know, you get a good spot here. I think for Mad Bulls, smart rotation from them, they send 2 down towards the south side, leaving 2 in Paradise Resort on the buildings. This is just in case it moves away. You have a quick couple of anchors that you can move over down towards, especially with this being Zarek, who is time and time again, their lead scout right on the team. You know that if he's moved down towards the south side, it's more than likely that's their anchor spot going forward. But he's zippy with it, right? He's fast, and I like to see it. Having a player that's able to get you into position nice and quickly and provide the info back. I think Mad Bulls really just thrive on the moment-to-moment gameplay, which is why I was surprised, basically just as surprised as.
Мы, как всегда, увидим дохуя перехила. Здорово, Фреон. Я смотрю, у нас прям чат на Авенджеров сегодня собрался.
On the east side of Quarry, they've yet to skirt around it. Most likely they will need to. They haven't made that choice. Go across, go up, go down.
Чел просто в ужасе, блядь, съебался. Чтобы уж точно не нашли.
Given that we can see the minimap, but do they know that?
Again, it's this rotating lobby, which is what becomes a difficulty. I think, though, just purely if you look back on the VODs from the last week of phase 1, you should know that, like, down towards Quarry, down towards Cave, that is a brutal area to be in. So if I'm Na'Vi, I think, you know, the most heads-up decision right now would most likely
Нави сейчас сюда передислоцируются. Скорее всего. Будут сидеть с кайфом. Но зона опять, блядь, центр вот этот. Заебали зоны эти уже. Прежде не бег.
Try and get it done. Four Romanian men are starting to push in.
На кого манекен похож? На кого?
Just behind Ruthless Esports. Browner in the spotting tower. Just into this next circle. Crossing starting to come through now, starting to be executed.
Ты еще жив, тренером работаешь? Здорово, да, работаю. Как видишь, жив. Работаю.
For the time being. And Na'Vi haven't made their full way through.
Again, if you're doing your homework, you're probably more concerned down towards that southeast side where a lot of these teams are getting caught up down towards Quarry. Ruthless Esports and Four Romanian men, this is an isolated fight, just with the way that it's split between here and Quarry.
Очень приятно, рад помочь.
Ruthless Esports just keeping aware of it, don't want to move too quickly. I think they've been caught off
Модеры все, не знаю, Лаки был где-то тут.
By making this rotation too soon.
Бля, вот я сижу, кашляю и курю зачем-то эту хуйню. Здорово, здорово. Чаечку попить, что-нибудь вкусненькое захвачу.
Might see a little bit more of that in the next couple of minutes. Team started to get a little bit too close for comfort. The last player for Big is still alive, by the way. Swave is on that northwestern side. I imagine it's going to be a med looting mission for this guy. And he's going to try and heal out for as long as possible. Moving forward, having the whole of Hotin essentially unlooted and fully available to grab up those meds.
Я принес вам толстую кошку. Толстую злую кошку. Ей, кстати, 16 лет. Она очень толстая, вредная и злая.
Again, though, a fair bit of bullets coming their way, and Codex just feel like they've not been quite able to return to form that we saw before. Folly moves up. Good shots from the side from Moneyken, though, and this guy has been absolutely fantastic.
Я в New State не играю, что ты взял мне? Я ни во что не играю.
Sits him up towards 30 total eliminations now across the entirety of phase 1, which is pretty damn good.
Zombie on the foothill there. Not quite able to get an angle back into the buildings. A risky push, but makes it happen. Sightlines for Codex not quite there to shut it down. X-Team lose a player.
Не, почему ласт стрима по New State? Я сейчас вот PMPL стримлю. Что я поигрываю в New State, ну, просто по кайфу было. Сейчас не по кайфу уже. Может быть, потом опять по кайфу будет.
I think now for Codex in particular, the next point of call should
Давай
be
пакетом.
staying wary
Зона прям full гора. Мы эти зоны каждый раз, по-моему, видим на станке. Ну или через игру. Удивительно, что Пайнан никто не занял. И кем центральный, ну практически центральный особо. Вот юники бы сейчас просто на дурачка бы залетели. У них вон вроде 2 тачки есть. Было бы сладко. Команда навесилась. Предикт чат? Да, ты же и так знаешь результаты. Какой смысл тебе предиктить? Какой смысл вообще, зная результаты, что-то вообще говорить? Зачем? А именно лазу.
Whereabouts this team is considering to go. I mean, even if they wrap all the way down towards Painan Bridge, I don't think that's the most.
Просто едет, бам, блядь, камень.
Again, it's that northern side that has been more often open, so perhaps they're maybe even trying to think about the mental game. A lot of these players, if they put the homework in, perhaps everyone's heading up towards the north side, so we can slip in down towards Camp Charlie or Cave. But again, Formanian men and Team Doom.
А как попасть? Там че вообще брейнлак словил какой-то? Вот тогда смог. Вот такая конченая эта гора на самом деле. Я так не любил на ней файтиться никогда. Что дефать, что пушить, это просто пиздец. А, ну так ты еще на Википедии смотришь. Да бля, зачем? И просто и смотри катки. То, что ты узнаешь на 10 минут позже, ничего не изменится. Так интереснее хотя бы будет. Моя команда сейчас из СНГ региона, но мы будем следующий PMPL играть, европейский, скорее всего.
For Romanian men, 3 up now, but there's a little bit of retribution from the top rope. Frost drops down, but it's not quite going to put them on ice just yet. Zero wants to try and hold out for Team Doom, but it's not looking good. Last player is there, 3 players down for 4 Romanian men. They can get these reses through in this phase, but they need to be fast about them.
Yeah, Phantom's just going to dip here. Literally slipping away into the shadows. Romanian men might just be able to get their teammates back up. The next level hasn't hit just yet, so they will be able to get off these heals. And quickly they loot up their own team member. A little bit unfortunate.
Сейчас результаты. Но в целом, если какие-то нормальные турики, да. А когда какая-то пьянка идет и хуйней занимаются, то не очень. Не, ну вообще в целом, да, пацаны сильные. Они сейчас типа украинские квалы играют, но там один игрок. И они с первого места вообще выходили из своей группы. И на самом деле, лично мне, то, что Олда кикнули, на руку, потому что мой игрок, возможно, сейчас займет первое место и поедет на Бали. Так что круто. Актуальный ростер. Elementrix, Атакер, Эйсос и Пуляо. А, ну еще Маднес на замене. Чисто подпердыш. Ну, короче, PMPL игроки.
Yeah, Codex able to pick up that elimination on Phantom as well, so gets another point in Team Doom to finish them off. Virtus Pro moving in. They're also taking shots from Codex, so Codex doing a really good job to hold out all these teams. I'm very, very impressed to see this from Codex, considering the different moves they've made to try and ensure that they don't get caught out again. TJB for Jason.
Важно твое мнение. Хочу предложить команде месяц забить на результаты и просто подряд всех выпушивать, играя в фулл агрессию максимально. Увеличить IQ в файтах и уверенность. Это, конечно, неплохо, но это чревато тем, что команда будет проезжать. Допустим, как только первый файт пройдет, даже если они будут его выигрывать, они будут выигрывать с потерями и будут доигрывать вдвоем. И так будет большинство каток. А вдвоем ты уже нормально никуда не запушишь. Вы, по сути, будете очень дохуя времени просто так проебывать. Вы будете играть катки и... Не знаю, если вы файты не будете в 4 в 0 вывозить или хотя бы 3 в 0, то от этого смысла никакого не будет. ВПшки закончились, да, у нас или что? Или там кто-то остался? Нет, там еще кто-то остался. А вообще, в целом, да, идея неплохая. Но будет гораздо профитнее, чтобы они тренировали файты и коммуникацию, и чтобы они просто паблики пушили, так всех катались. Однохуйственно абсолютно. Просто может быть так, что там первая катка не пошел, первый файт, там вторая катка тоже файт не пошел. И так далее. Типа это все по сноуболу пойдет, и толком ничего хорошего из этого не получится. Чтобы вывозить файты 4 в 0... Ох, ебать, прок! Чтобы вывозить файты 4 в 0, надо выбирать грамотную позиционку. И должна быть грамотная коммуникация в команде. Почти в любой позиции можно расположиться так, на приемке, чтобы ты не потерял вообще ни одного игрока, и чтобы вы все друг друга видели. Вот это надо тренировать, а не просто бездумные въезды.
Madballs can still move down though, and that will be their big challenge. Take Aim Gaming lose their final player to X Team, I believe that was, who, like you said, are just really being the kryptonite to Codex at the moment. Every single time they try.
А, ну еще стрелять чуть-чуть надо уметь тоже. Совсем забыл. Так, чуть-чуть хотя бы.
And Andy's still going with the M762.
Чтобы не было в тот момент, когда от тебя требуется дать очень важный ног, а ты такой, ай, блядь, да как так, сука? 1 хп, вот тут, вот тут. Я в сейве, поднимите. Я думаю, ты понял. Блядь, манекена просто сегодня весь день гранатами взрывают. Ой, боже. Как же он ловит.
Heavily suffering against X Team in these past 2 games.
Oh yeah, they're literally just causing massive issues. Death Machine trying to coop through from the eastern side, but it's TJB who's taking shots. Champions Jamaz.
Что, у нас, походу, еще одна для ДМР? Там перед ними камешки есть прикольные, надо занимать, быстро идти.
Roll kiss now in the crosshair. We'll get the spray, looking for the flush potentially. Gonzo down as well. These players on the outside. Not a chance they're getting them back up. Crypto.
Боже, сколько, я боюсь представить, сколько людей хилит сейчас.
ARB champions ruin the hopes of Unicorn to love with 1 player left. It's Icy God.
8 eliminations for ARB as well, and that's without the hot.
Тут уже готовится перехил. Им аптек скинули. Вот куда ты добиваешь? Чел такой чел. А вот эти все челы — это перехил. Посмотрите. Это все перехил. А, ну этот не будет хилить, у него 0 аптек.
Can NASA take the trade? Can he take this 1v1? Shao on the outside now. Will just get shut down through the window. Shao can make this run. The blue zone at the back. Not too healthy on the situation with the loot there. Well, level 1 helmet, level 1 vest, both heavily damaged there. Looks like TJB in general not super looted at this stage.
They've not moved a lot, right? They took this position, they took central, and they've waited other teams to get towards them. But because it's so open in this area...
Ой, как он Ой, как он поднастрал! Он просто, он сейчас вот эту игру ДМРом выиграл. Но если они сейчас не обосрутся...
Oh, that's absolutely disastrous, as you say. Icy God doing so much. Wave is still alive, Blank. He's still going.
Да. Все, с победой ДМР, получается. 2 подряд, красавцы. Здесь еще и с киллами. Боже, как же сольник подруинил, пиздец.
they're not speedy enough on that initial rotate. It's final player from 4 Romanian men taken down. And Demuerte with their second chicken dinner.
Да, просто, блин,
If they can take down.
окей, эту катку ДМР нормально, не скиллами, но, блядь, вот даже так посудить, все, типа, делают для того, чтобы ДМР выигрывали. В прошлой игре, в этой игре. По сути, ДМР ничего такого не делают сверхъестественного. Просто они, ну, им дают, они делают. Правильно?
And we'll be able to get that first aid off just in time. Necessary to stay alive. And we are just waiting this one out. Big. Not going to be able to do too much. Although, to be fair, there's only 2 for Demuerte. An angle and a double spray could be good, but it's out of first aids. Demuerte, chicken dinner.
The back-to-back coming through. Really, really good stuff from them. I don't think it was easy for them either, coming through on that side. And a fair few eliminations towards
Да не надо никого хранить еще.
So very, very nice stuff. Again, it's that just quick enough on that rotator TJB. They don't clear enough angles. They don't have the smokes available to them in that end game either. So, goodness me. I really hope that was the chance for them, honestly. But TJB, they do finally go down. I don't know how many points.
Бля, я что-то есть захотел. Что бы поесть?
Solo still left in the circle, healing out towards the end. But it's Icy God to take down 2 of them.
А покормите меня, чат.
Yeah, I mean, that was really, really pivotal there. Getting those spray downs. Very important. Unicorns as
Или хотя бы накидайте что-нибудь прикольного. Вариантов из еды.
I mean, you know what? He had to be wrong somehow. Why not wrong to Max's prediction, the Lone Ranger?
Yeah, I think that it's fair play. Fair play. For English, though, I think we do have to highlight this guy.
Шаву? Нет. После того, как я попробую одну шаву, я другие шаву теперь вообще не могу есть.
Last game on Miramar, that he really has been the star player coming through from Demuerte, and I will stick to my guns with that one. I think he's just been doing really good stuff. Even last season,
роллы не хочу, роллы позавчера ел.
Very good performances, and it feels like the rest of the team has been, again, I'll use that phrase, re-bolstered around him to create something a little bit more consistent. And this way, he's able to pop up
слишком жирно.
He's less playing defense now because Flank's very good at that, and more able to play that offensive role on the team.
Yeah, hoping to punch through those defenses. Seems Demuerte going pretty solid right now. Trying to keep up that record, trying to keep that consistency will be key moving forwards for them.
Шашлык? Да не, вы что, угораете?
It is all about closing in on those bonus points for the
Если только ёбаный шашлык.
Keeping that one alive, excellent if you can make it happen.
Таких хомяков, это не хомяки, это крысы.
Important. Get that Livid game in. It is coming on day 6, so a couple of days now on Sunday. But yeah, for Demuerte, if they can carry on with this, it will be extremely good. And again, in those first 3 days, John, they weren't bad either.
No, certainly weren't. Tell you who else who isn't bad, Blank. They're not bad. Come on, it's the desk.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. None of us are bad indeed. But Demuerte picking up back-to-back wins here. They were in 12th place at the start of the day at 73 points, and I'm really curious to see where they're going to be now. But for them to secure a top 12, where they're getting one step closer to obviously try to get that Livid game under their belts, and then potentially some extra points going into our first stint, and more importantly, into the finals. But we can see 26 points. So for Demuerte this time, I did criticize they had the zone going their way. They didn't get that many eliminations, but at least they locked the game down. This time, they get the zone to go their way again, but they get the 11 eliminations behind it to really show that they're a threat.
Yeah, one of the reasons why they were able to convert quite a few eliminations this game, 11 eliminations total, is because on the phase 2 shift, I believe it was, they instantly crossed through Painan, because normally they go towards that summer location. Reason why TJB is not dropping that location is because Demuerte is very aggressive in the early game. But here they just crossed the river north of Painan and they just gatekeep all of the teams trying to enter from the western side.
Тем временем еда в клетке.
Also, take aim gaming. So a lot of teams are trying to make that cross. So they just do it early, so they don't get gate kept, and then they became the main threat over to the western side. And when they clear the west, very similar situation from that last game on Miramar, where there's no one to contest their location, so they just push in the circle, they have the man advantage, they take the win. It's clean, it's efficient, and then they just get themselves the win off the back of it. So they found a method, and it's working out so far. Was my point that bad?
No, it's fine. That's just such a brave back-to-back chicken dinners, right? Just very brave. No, there wasn't really many people to contest them, as you're saying. I think something that really stands out, once we take a look at the highlights, is the fact that Big... How on earth did you get away with what you've gotten away with here? Suave really being able to salvage some of the situations for these guys at the moment. So manages to get himself all the way, was it second place in the end? I think it is, right?
Second place?
I mean, he went from losing his team to getting second place and in the end more points than Navi, who were the ones who took out his teammates. Like that's insane. That's brave.
That's brave. That's very brave. Very well done.
It is a bit weird. I think this might be like kind of an effect of the rotating lobbies too. Maybe this is just a game where like Big or Navi are like, oh, we forgot they were actually in this game this time around, and they just both drop on it. Because it happened in the past where they would both drop on the Northwest Island and never even get close to one another. But this time, Navi instantly drop on like Big's Camp Alpha position, and they have the Big on clash at the start. So it was a bit weird. Hopefully the next one that happens is not going to be the case. But yeah, as you see, second place for Swave.
Yeah.
Easy, mate.
There's a decent way to coexist up on that West Island, right? Like, I mean, they could, in theory, there's plenty of room to work with. Game Lord was up there, then makes the transition towards main island, and I think that's a decent play as a whole. Just obviously the circles don't quite go their way. They're having to approach the circles from the north, where there is potential kind of that barrier. But TJB and De Muerte, just in general, what they were able to kind of show here, I think TJB could have converted a little bit more given their spot, but of course, if a circle shifts away from your compound, it gets very sketchy, Max, as to how you're going to be able to approach it.
Yeah, the thing is also with TJB, they have consistently been changing their drop location, and his head-to-head is very interesting because really the one that has put a span in the works for the normal strat of TJB, which is to heal off in the blue, is De Muerte, the drop in Same, right? De Muerte is the reason why TJB has not been able to find a main drop-in location on this match, and they have to change every single time, and not being able to find any remote kind of consistency is because of De Muerte. So TJB a little bit salty potentially about that one, but and even then they drop early towards the western side of what position was it? Was ban, and they just instantly rotate. They have no resources. You maybe got like a bunch of tier 2 assets, maybe a few decent weapons, but I need to see TJB spend more time looting, not to the point of like going for the heal strat, but just at least having enough to be able to take a fight on an even like footing with another team, which here wasn't the case.
It's a huge style shift for TJB that they have to get used to on Sandhawk right now, and it will take some tweaking. It will take a little bit of time for them to be able to get it. I mean, if they're getting top 5 spots with it right now, that's pretty decent, but obviously they would like to have a bit more.
I mean, I think it was last season we criticized them as obviously doing this heal-off strat in Sandhawk, but to be fair, whenever the zone did shift on top of them, they would sit and fight, and they would intentionally go into the blue. But I am kind of curious right now because maybe TJB see this as a way to like practice going on into you know, later stages of this event or later events as well in general. But right now, they're not looking like that dominating team. Well, I can't say dominating. The team that would get a majority of points and a majority of like second place finishes when it comes to Sandhawk. But I mean, either way, like the zone shift on top of them is unfortunately kind of shifted slightly away towards De Muerte. They had, you know, a decent compound to defend with for such a long time, and they still got some decent points in the end, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and also as Blank said, like English has been a really standout player for the team of De Muerte so far. He's been doing a lot of work for the team. And actually, I was looking at the entire roster and their background. They also have a Unicorn part of the team. There was an old player of 12-18 from CIS. Like, very, very talented team over in the CIS region in the past. So they definitely have that experience, right? A team that didn't have too much experience like watching them actually play with this type of roster, but so far they make it to the late game. They're able to convert it into a win, and they know how to get into the late game. So a scary team that can contest some wins is a team that could go really far here.
Okay, well, I did want to touch on Swave one more time really quickly. I believe we have something to show how much healing he was doing, because that's the part that I'm really interested in for him to survive that long. I think Kalaris even proposed the question when we were watching, like, what is he going to do now? And in the end, it was just kind of sneakily pick up as many meds as possible and just survive. And again, for Big, right, they're not looking too great. This is actually a massive victory for them in general if you think about the scope of the event so far, because they have not been a team who's been able to get decent finishes, be able to contend when it comes to eliminations where they were previously. So maybe this is the motivation boost that they needed.
Yeah, it's a decent point, Erna. I wonder if this makes them change focus a little bit on Sandhawk. Because, I mean, the position that they're dropping on, if you get a Northwest Island finish, sure, fantastic, have at it, you know. But anything else, transitioning is difficult. But they've just kind of proven to themselves that the healing strat isn't too bad still. So maybe they do try it for it more on Sandhawks. We'll see in the future.
Yeah, they could definitely give it a try, but look at that. Well, wow.
There we go.
That's just a line. What?
That's just a line, mate. It's just pointing upwards. Maybe that's in big
Stonks. Literally.
There you go.
I mean, you're seeing there, though, right? 15 damage, 1 elimination, and 2,000 healing. Like, his game plan was basically set for him the second that he lost his 3 teammates. And was like, I'm just going to survive the best I can. And it's a viable strategy. I mean, it secures you at least 12 points because that's second place. And then I believe they had like 2 eliminations behind that. So not bad in general for Big, but obviously not the way that they want to be, I'd say, performing in matches.
Yeah. I mean, even there, Swave, I think you just breathed on someone and they died with that 15 damage. So, yeah, not big from Big, but we need to see some changes happen, right? And I think the Big can still do some big things, but they were known for being a very good aggressive team. When you add CIS teams to the mix, you're leveling up the entire lobby. So, Big need to be able to reflect that change and hopefully step up on the long term. They're not there just yet, but I believe they can make the right changes to get there.
I think that's a good point you bring up, though. I mean, obviously, with the CIS teams coming in, I feel like they're more aggressive. They're better mechanically than the teams we've been seeing in general when it comes to West Europe. And they're able to fight teams really, really well. And I think that's where TJB, we saw excel initially when we saw them be able to fight with, well, GK first fight. But we'll see. We'll obviously have still 2 more matches left to go here. So let's go back to our commentators as the next match is ready to go.
And we're going back to Erangel as well. Back to the old Pachinki hot drop. Well, maybe not hot drop, hopefully. We've seen so many hot drops going on. The Stauber triple hot drop was pretty fresh in the mind from the first game, but maybe we'll see that change.
It's been all day, dude. I mean, I'm interested to see what will occur here, because going down to 54 players that early on is just unbelievable on Erangel, to say the least. But it's been some pretty horrific circles today, honestly. Fielded area over towards Erangel, then over towards literally the mountainside on Miramar, and then just complete dead open zone on Sandhawk. So maybe we'll see something a little bit more playable. Let's put it that way. Here on Erangel, possibly even an urban finish. I wouldn't mind that at all. We only saw one of those towards the very beginning of the day of phase 1, and then also I believe it was Chumacero we saw over on Erangel, or it was, I think it was Impala. It was Impala.
So we're going to be looking out for the urban finish, military island finish potentially.
Maybe the military. I wouldn't mind a milli finish. The milli finish is always good fun.
Блять, они все разъебали тут, что ли? Ебать.
How about no vote to that, honestly? That would just be people hiding for about 10 minutes trying to look for one another, and then one dude up on the old cranes taking shots at people. We do get a very kind playing path that heads over towards underneath Yasnaya, over towards hospital, so a lot of teams be able to get into position. Millie slightly more out of location, so Arab champions, as well as a few other teams like Unicorns of Love, who like to drop down towards Nova Repnoya, a little bit put out here. I find that quite interesting as well. We do have so many teams dropping down towards Sosnovka itself. But this time around, Eastern Stars get immediately down towards Miltus, so able to get into position very quickly here, John.
Looks like ARB are going for a backup drop as well. No military direction for them. Heading up to Severny.
Yeah,
in the middle of the plane path.
I think without... I believe we don't have Big in this lobby, so without Big here, ARB can comfortably head up towards Severny without any contest. So this is a smart read on the game, whoever made that call from ARB champions, and they'll be able to get into position real quick. Okay, so it looks like I'm not going to be getting any of those nice circles again. This is basically all the way down towards the southwest. So there's fields, there's still Sosnovka in this one. There's even potential that we drop over towards that bridge side on the west, which will be also just as uncomfortable.
That is really quite difficult circle going on. Those teams in the southwest maybe looking for more sanctuary than they are used to. Those rotations will be crucial from the eastern teams as well to try and isolate that position. You can imagine if a team takes up residence on Potato Hill, they could cut off a lot of those teams on the east, but there will be a lot of pressure put on them to be able to hold that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's this compound down towards the south side of Potato Hill, which looks out towards the fields, which wouldn't be a bad position to play. I think for Gaka as well, there's easily positions there to hold down. So X teams coming out with everyone in the lobby recently. That's Unicorns of Love trying to just make their passageway down towards Nova Repnoya. Not a bad decision either, considering with the circle, heading out towards Nova Upnoya, get very, very nice and looted, and then from there swing down on the western bridge. And with
Меня
a lot of
нисколько.
teams
Ноль.
decided to head Sosnovka, they've got free reign here. And with it being the circle, you could spend a lot of time here too.
Yeah, you're really, really close, especially since it's only phase 1. You're going to have plenty of supplies to be picking through. And it's going to be difficult for them to know if ARB took the western bridge, but you've got to think that they wouldn't predict that. They would have seen people dropping on those vehicles early on out that they have dropped on. They might have an inkling that they're the only team over there.
Yeah, it'd be really hard to even drop on those vehicles down towards Gatka. You'd be going through so many different teams there, John, as well. So you have a few players to take pot shots over towards yourself. So I think for Unicorn to love, I'm pretty sure they're assuming that they're the only team down here, as they were the fastest in to dropping out the plane nice and early.
Денис, я думаю, что тебя неправильно поймут, если ты голый пробежишься по улицам. Не надо так делать.
In the vehicle as quickly as possible before people get to pick up those DMRs, pick up those M4s, and slap a 6x or a 3x on them and just take shots at you as you razzing it through.
Учитывая... Ну ладно, пизду.
Navi in North George. Going to be looting up Pioneer on South George, pretty close by. The West Coast rotation, not as long as it has been some time. Obviously, that circle.
Так, у нас тут юники тайминг мне не очень приятно словили. А вот и все, и пиздец вам. Че, нормально, да? Упоролись в ротацию? Блять, по второму жалко не залетело. Да все, забейте. Добейте и уезжайте. А, он, я думал, в бабочку заехал. Все, тогда можно, да.
Honestly, I can't say I rated that push from TJB whatsoever. There's an off angle as well, so XT is more than likely going to go down. Xiao's flushed out. TJB down to 2 players, so not sure what's happening with TJB today, but it's not looking good. Coming off the back of that game as well, you know, I was talking to the guys behind the scenes there just about how awful it must feel, you know, to leave a compound.
Но пока на данный момент еще нет такой дисциплины, которая бы меня пиздец заинтересовала, так же как PUBG в свое время, чтобы я прям с головой улетел. Ну вот единственное, что я помню, когда Warzone выходил, на старте я прям очень плотно в него играл, а потом я забил хер, потому что... Я не помню почему. Я пока PUBG не смотрю.
Back to the days 1 and 2 performance, not good for TJB. Seems like X Team have been tested quite a lot in these last couple of games, as they're on our screen. And I feel like they haven't done super badly. I mean, obviously that first engagement with Codex went very well for them over on Miramar. But they've been in a pretty sticky set of situations as time goes on. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to manage to extract that many points from those scenarios and leave themselves still towards the bottom of the table with quite a gap to go. But if you're going to start, you've got to start somewhere.
They're just taking fights, and I think that, you know, that's not the worst thing in the world, especially with the way these phases work. I think if you're a team right at the top who knows that you're a winner, right? Let's just take Virtus Pro, for example, who are really on the big rise at the moment in terms of the lobby. Not seeing too much out of Mad Bulls and Eastern Stars, although Mad Bulls have been putting in some consistent points here and there to bring themselves up towards the top of the table. But if you're Virtus Pro, you're looking for those consistent points to take with you into the finals. If you're X Team, on the other hand, and you're just really having a bad phase 1, you take those fights, you look to push your limits, and sure, you might
захотели в Макс закатить.
only 5-10 points going into the finals.
Погнали. Очень зря, потому что Мак был свободен. Они просто увидели на горе челов и испугались.
Phase 2 and phase 3, maybe you can rectify some of those issues. Again, yes, it does put you far ahead with the format that gives you points going to the finals, but it's not so far ahead that if you improve a ton over the entirety of PMPL Western Europe, you can't bring it back in the finals still.
Закатили на бедного человека, который долутывается, их, по-моему, вообще всего 2 осталось.
Wouldn't be easy, but it would be doable. You're right. That's what these teams are going to be looking for. TJB, though, with 2. They've been getting into plenty of scrapes as well.
Что по Нави?
They have
Ну,
many
так
esteemed
себе.
me on the team.
Не очень.
Reposition close to Shockwave,
Да, не раздупляться.
who have been doing pretty well today. Careening fast up the tables. They're in 9th now with 105 points in amongst that big middle group of teams on those close point tallies. Looking for that spot in Levick.
Absolutely. We are starting to get a little bit more of a split towards the top side of the lobby, with some of the better teams starting to pull ahead just a little bit now, and then being some significant drop-offs. But we have had some different teams popping off today. I mean, Muerte, who started the day in 12th, are now 6th, which is a really good result for themselves, coming to the day 4 of phase 1. Shockwave, though, down towards the yellows, with Nexus just in front of them, holding out on that western bridge. Na'Vi, though, taking a fight with Death.
Там Нави где-то закусились. С добивом оформили. Ну, скорее всего, ротация была. Ротация выстрелили.
Something from the
Ну
game.
да,
I
вон они.
mean, you know, could be worse. Could have got 0 points, but now they're guaranteed at least that one. Unicorns of Love swinging down on the military base. You can see Gonzo on the north peak near
Я в Сосновку не верю тут.
Crypto on the south side on that main road. There's the next circle shift. Blank. It's southwest again. Sorry.
At least it's not Sosnovka, right? I think that's where you'd have the worst.
Не, Человек-паука я не играл. Да я не очень люблю Человека-паука. И вообще всю вот эту тему комиксов. Особенно Марвел.
Heavy western shift, it does mean that the majority of these teams that were hoping to possibly camp towards this western bridge side will have to start moving, because they have prio on the circle. They need to get
Но говорят, игра
find
прикольная.
some compounds maybe towards that western side. Pioneer, we've not seen too much out of over the last couple of games there, over towards that western side at the moment. Just keeping it calm, keeping it quiet.
Сериал «Пацаны» не смотрел.
They moved from that South George
Мне не
position.
понравилась
Na'Vi from the North
концепция.
George position. I feel
Мне много
like
кто
their
советовал,
rotations
но,
in
опять же,
general on
супергеройская
Herald
тематика.
seem to be
Я знаю, что она там с
fairly
другой
sound,
стороны
and they're
показана, но
making
все равно.
another split player right now. You can see Kitsune out on the west, Tixie scouting down south. They have that core of Matic and Meku.
Сколько еще игр? Это и еще одна вроде.
Holding down their major spot there. There's the replay of Tingsko getting that catch out.
Shockwave losing that one player is a bit rough, especially because they wanted to move into the circle nice and quickly.
Я недавно посмотрел
With this, they're not.
аниме «Идеальная грусть». Ну, Perfect Blue, короче, называется. Вот. В принципе, мне зашло прикольно. Или как еще там на некоторых сайтах называется «Идеальный синий». Ну, превосходная грусть. Как Райан Гослинг, нормально. На кухне сидит, но ждет, пока я достримлю. Там бухать будем с ним. А, сегодня же пятница. Сегодня пятница. Надо что-нибудь сегодня прикольное замутить. Может, в центр поехать.
Only one player on this position, so maybe the spray is not going to be super impactful. Narvalo, you can see he had the orc there, grabbed that first airdrop.
Очень странное дело, тоже не смотрел. Начал смотреть первую серию первого сезона. Че, когда он только выходил. Задушился, нахуй дропнул.
Small cannon in the hands of Narvalo there. 122 points though, and honestly, just 1 point shy of dropping into 8th place. Pioneer just behind them, 121. So Game Lord really have fallen off a little bit. And I'll again reiterate what the guys in the desk said. These guys were the king of Western Europe for a long, long time. But it seems at the moment they're just lost.
Да чат по-любому знает. Сейчас анимешники набегут.
They just need a little bit of help to get back on track again.
They need to be exercised of that notion codex. On the outside of the compound Shockwave, on the southeast side near the bridge, as Unicorns of Love had made that crossing already, done so safely, all 4 of them still alive for the time being. Next circle soon to pop. This northeastern side, Taken Gaming, Game Lord very close to one another. The circle
не совсем угадал, ну ладно. Ну тоже интересно будет.
Right on top of Mad Balls as well. Again, it's this
Змейка, что ли, гора вот эта?
Well, these teams have to.
Кстати, еще либо вот это поле, может быть, тоже часто уходит. Но вверх уже не верю. Это вот.
I think this is always the thing on a lot of these teams' minds on this side of the lobby. Game Lord.
А, про паприку, бля. Про паприку я тоже слышал, что-то говорят норм.
And I think with this circle, they really do have to figure something out here, bring things back up to speed.
Про анимешники звучит убого. Да, ну не то, что убого, но... Не знаю. Да вообще похуй. Там что звучит? Анимешники меньше пидорасами, это точно становится. Извините. Анализ живи.
Just have the angles for it. Nade over the top, sent in deep by Narvalo. Rops on the outside as well for Game Lord, proving to be such a thorn in the side, but that's going to be extracted. And there's more bandages.
Эх, вот бы чат кто-то в спину заехал также. А некому заехать уже.
Great shots there. But now Narvalo perhaps wants to pick up Robs here. Take aim gaming down on that side, it's going to be difficult to rotate into a decent position. Death Machine though, Molotovs, toss from the top side towards Nexus, 2 eliminations.
3 players apiece for these.
Я думал, он сейчас опять молик забежит.
I think you might have run through the fire there. Not ideal. Getting ticked down. A knock on the outside. Use one on the ground floor.
Вообще не летит ничего. Ну куда ты пикаешь, блять, на таком хп, бездарь?
Nade down the hill, not even, sorry, the hill, the stairs, not going to be finding what it's looking for either. And now there's only one player upstairs for Nexus, as the 2 players are down on the ground floor. NASA.
Фильм 1+1, да, смотрел, прикольный фильм.
Doran with only the 1 nade, can't afford to put it down the stairs, but can afford to put down Hamodi. But there's one final shot from the nade.
А почему фреймы не заезжают?
Yeah, for Death Machine, kind of difficult to get rid of that single player on the top side, but you know they put enough members in, send the nade up top side, and it's only a matter of time for them. They will lose 2 players for that. 5 eliminations, still you put 5 points on the game, it's decent. Konzo love Konzo just swings through very slowly there. Not sure how he got away with that one, but they're right down towards that southeast side.
Зеленую книгу, по-моему, смотрел. Или не смотрел. Не смотрел. Перепутал другим фильмом. Он недавний же вроде, да, по-моему, Зеленую книгу. Что-то по типу 1+1. Да.
Still fending off the unicorns on the south side, but there's an off angle Codex. Oh, here they come back in for the swing. Zombie and Beg for Mercy. Both really close to the blue, ticking down for Beg for Mercy. Wants to get back to the cover. Nightmare is low. The unicorns want to put the pressure on, but so do Codex as the nade finds Beg for Mercy out.
Если бы не 4 румына были, а 4, я понял, да.
More nades keep pouring in from money.
It's been great these nades so far. Able to finish off the team, but certainly puts the work in. Now Zombie can't quite pick the players back up. Will drop a couple of first aids in there. Codec's been sent back by X team a fair few times, so this is a bit of revenge.
Will Zombie be able to get the heal off? I imagine he will, but PNL looking to deal the final blow, will be able to do so. Shockwave go down, but X team are out.
Ну, наверное, сложно будет проходить сейчас в гору подниматься, если зона уйдет. А зона уйдет по-любому. Им через амбар надо будет проходить, пушить, а амбар вообще очень жестко пушит. Были там меды дефаются. Ой, меды исти. Меды в спине. Но единственное преимущество, что их трое. Ну, вернее, 4, а исти трое.
We're just zooming about. There's too much action here, John.
Кодексы вообще без стука просто залетели. На медов вообще не ожидали такого взрыва. Зря. Кстати, меды упоролись так вперед рано. Но у медов неплохо получается дефаться, манекен остается один. И судя по всему, это уже будет конечное для него. А вот по эффекту еще наваливается со спины. Ой, какая хаешка. От своего же. Скилл тут на тоненького просто. Кок на месте. Найс кок. Ой, Молик туда сейчас очень в тему будет. Если бы он еще им попал.
Molotov stops the hop out of the window to try and go for some sneaky plays there. There are off angles as well that the unicorns can start to occupy. How long do they spend on this? Because they still have to get ahead of the curve and get towards that fight, that engagement with 4 Romanian men. Team Doom are down. Gonzo, though, you can see him scouting on the top.
Так, мне интересно сейчас, как Нави пойдут через EST.
To make sure that there is a position for them to head over towards as soon as they finish this fight. But 4 Romanian men, they have eyes on. It's only 2 players, Killer and Get Wrecked, but difficult to spot this one out. Looks like they won't be picking up that.
Точно пойдут теперь. Ой, какая сейчас пизда начнется. Слушай, нам сейчас только надо за Нави наблюдать.
Na'Vi will have to push through the Eastern Stars or skirt around them. They'll have to choose their path. I think Na'Vi was Jason's prediction. Pioneer was Max's or James's, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Kalaris, and ARB was taken up by.
Да, 15 место от Нави это явно не то, что мы хотим видеть.
So the northwestern side kind of looking good to the analysts.
Absolutely. Most of these teams, well, the analysts kind of know what they're doing. Got to get one of them right sometime, though. Feels like the streak of analysis has gone a little bit downhill. Maxman was really coming in with some big blessings last week. Champions, though, nade over the top. Again, this is the problem with Pioneer. It's just too silent. That would take too much of an aggressive play here. And Arab Champions just sending grenades in.
Не совсем Япон. Опа, ага, отлично. 4 в 2. 4 в 1. Пока изи вообще. Вообще просто в ноль. Просто в ноль. Исти вообще нихуя не поняли. Исти, наверное, думали, что Нави будут ждать, и потом только с зоной пойдут. У меня волосы окрашены.
James was the one who predicted Pioneer, and I mean, he really wanted to see them take home a chicken dinner. Sorry, Maxman predicted ARB. James predicted Pioneer. Really wanted to see them take home a chicken dinner, and I feel like that's coming through in the prediction.
You say Maxman predicted Pioneer and James predicted Pioneer, though.
Things are getting crazy in this lobby. It's Maxman who predicted ARB. It's James who predicted Pioneer.
Okay, there you go. Perfect. I think for ARB, though, they have held a really nice angle on this northern side towards Pioneer. And yeah, they are going head to head.
Делали Нави, ставлю на Нави.
Towards just the little underneath of the hillside here. Towards the eastern side. And takes really towards the high ground.
Комментатор громкий, я могу потише сделать. У меня просто сегодня звука навалено больше.
Taken out on the southeast edge. Unicorns of Love, Game Lord suffering. Game Lord actually down and out. Will be fully eliminated there. We'll go no further. Pioneer, 4 players alive. As ARB are eliminated as well. The north side starting to clear out as the south just did.
Нави сейчас пионеров должны не пускать. И там нормально залетело с новой снайпы этой. 2 нока уже схавали каким-то образом. Так а чё? Ну, Black White, ты чё? Иржан, блядь, вставай. Там Тигзи еще нокнули в спину. Нави, блядь, как вы вообще не законтролили спину? У вас же файт в лесу был, вы же слышали. Ну там, скорее всего, нок схавал просто кто-то от пионеров. Они поехали все резать, помогать. И тут Йолы выстрелились из спины. Ну, неприятно. Ну ладно, хотя пионеры живут еще и Йолы, Гонзабасик.
Pioneer is really good at scything the wheat, right? You know, getting those third-party knocks, finishing off teams, crippling teams as well, is something they're extremely skilled at. You know, their macro is fairly unrivaled. Fortunately, at least on our angle, the team fighting is good enough, but some of these teams who are just mechanically skilled, like Unicorns of Love, they just can't quite contend with them.
Мне кажется, он просто на звук стрельбы кинул гранату. Не знаю, мне кажется, пионерам надо было просто фулл по левой вчетвером пушить идти. Ну, хотя, блядь, тут вот эти насеры. Ой, насеры эти десы. Ну вот, фулл по левой, вообще прям вот так вот, с этой стороны надо было идти пушить. Прям вчетвером пойти и жать. Да, у нас пиздец вообще в Москве. У нас с 1 сентября просто за аты секунду, блядь, похолодало. Просто вот 1 сентября наступило, и все, пиздец, сразу максимальный холод. До этого была жара, в шортах ходил. Еще на выходные купаться ездили. Это просто хуяк и все. Здрасте, здрасте.
Yeah, they have pumped this game, and now it's just 2 players that remain, and so far, Unicorns of Love, just in terms of distraction and the ability to use this utility.
And in goes Crypto for the final blow. Wants to take that challenge. Weapon swap is there, and the spray goes on in. It's Unicorns of Love. 17 eliminations on the game. A rampant victory for the Unicorns to ride strong.
And it's the Unicorns of Love to get just that little bit of retribution from the last phase where they finished it off, just not in the way they would have liked over towards Sosnovka, where they played a very smart game and a very good game.
Я понял, я понял. Ну я так и подумал, что кто-то нокнулся от пионеров. И чел пошел, который играл на горе сверху, помогать, спасать, и тут сразу Йолы в спину вышли. Короче, нокаться нельзя было просто, вот и все. А так Йолы красавчики. О. Когда бумага закончилась туалетная.
Focus on that too much and then split apart so they don't get both naded, and even if one does, the other survives and is able to maybe go for a refight.
Вебку опять вам на этих уёбках.
However, Icy doesn't have to do too much. All he has to do is throw that nade, and it separates both those players, and Raucus is able to run down one of them. Again, they're just using that 4-player advantage in that game to just ensure they get the victory in a lot of those knocks and a lot of those team fights. And I think this is the first time I've really felt like I've seen what Unicorns of Love can do as a team, because as a team, each individual player serves a singular role very, very well.
Pink shirt's back on top for this one. Let's head back over to the desk.
Yes. Thank you very much. Who's that voice? I'm not sure. Yeah, Unicorns of Love finally able to do what we expected to see them, perform from the very start of the tournament. Got a little bit of time to get there, but as Blank was saying at the end there, everyone had their role to play. And the moment they have that high ground position, they get the information, they get the perfect angles on the team that are trying to push into the circle.
Ну, как и многие продвой. Вот типа после февраля вообще просто наглухо все пропало. Ну, в плане. Да вообще, блядь, во всем плане. Во всех смыслах. В том числе и киберспорт. Да, я тут, я сидел, с кошкой играл. Я вообще пошел покурить. Так что вот, все, я ушел.
I mean, we've been talking them up for so long, and we're finally seeing them actually get a decent result. I feel like it's been forever since we've actually had this.
Давай, тебя крыса, да, выпущу.
Yeah, but 17 limbs, like that's a great confidence booster for the team, and obviously with the roster changes they've had, it's nice for them to finally get a victory under their belt, so they can take some pressure off of them.
I think it's our elimination record actually for after a win.
It's not only a win, it's the biggest win. And the way they were playing from that south side, and just kind of, they were doing a lot of basically third partying, but like at just the right times, just coming into those fights exactly when they needed to. And it's the perfect way to just sweep up points and move on. I think the second biggest was Nexus with 16, right? So just something a little bit above them. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, as Unicorns of Love, right, is that they can get into those game-winning moments, right? It's great. I wish we could see this more. The thing is that we saw in the last few matches for the past 3-4 days now is that they tend to lose players a little bit early sometimes. If they can just fix that one singular issue, this is what Unicorns of Love can do in the late game when they still have 4 players alive. Every single time, I'm sure they can do something similar to this. They can definitely get the eliminations. I mean, we saw there, Kalaris get 9 eliminations from Icy alone. He was one of our biggest standout players in the previous season in spring. It's good to see him back, but the whole team in particular, they were hyped up very heavily. It took some time, but if they can remain even remotely close to these type of performance and get to the late game as a full squad, I feel like this is Unicorns of Love that potentially has turned a new leaf.
You know, it's basically like roster changes we've had for some other teams, like TJB, for instance, right? With Gonzo coming in for the team as on loan, I guess, if you want to say it. Like, they have a lot to adapt to, a lot to learn from. They don't have Alicio, who is as well like a big standout player for them in the prior seasons, and they just kind of, well, they also lost Daddy too, right? He retired, so it's really tough for Unicorns of Love to bounce back from this.
Yeah, it's quite the change. I mean, Rolkis was previously on the roster as a whole, right? And then he left, and now he's back. And, so that's kind of familiar territory almost, in essence. But with Crypto, of course, is the big kind of addition or the big change that we see here. And I think he's been yet to properly show his, I was about to say guns, but do you know what I mean by that? Like, I think we've not yet seen like the Crypto effect in action here for them. So I'm hoping for that.
We haven't seen what kind of caliber of player he can be yet here in the Battlegrounds. But let's actually dive into their stats just so you can see who was really standing out. And to be fair, Crypto, second on damage right there. I mean, again, with a 17 elimination victory, you expect to see players to be decently high on damage. But those 9 elims out of Icy, I mean, he's been so quiet. He's been a puddle of water so far in this event. Things are starting to cool down for him.
Icy is an incredible player, but he needs a team to play with him, right? He's not going to be able to just 1v4 an enemy team every single time, especially with a lobby that's full of CIS teams now. It is not easy to do that. It's not like the previous season where he would do that a lot of the time. Like, this is a completely different approach he has to take. So having a team around him, he can do some proper setups. He can get those 9 eliminations here right away. So I'm really pumped to see Icy up there. But as you said already, Kalaris, Crypto, MVP from Pakistan here, really showing up. So we got 2 fraggers here looking good.
That's a really good point you bring up about he has to, like, work with the team playing around him. Because in my head, the last iteration of Unicorns Love, it was let's play around Alicio. So maybe it's like a massive adaptation in how they approach the game of, okay, now Icy's going to be the player that we're playing around instead of Alicio and see what we can do. And maybe that's a good sign for Unicorns Love, this victory here, that they've been working on some things and they've been improving.
And that's actually a really good point, Jason, because it did feel like in the previous season there was almost that conflict, right? Really, like, who do you play around? And as you say, for a bit it was Alicio, and then Icy comes along and it's like, but he is this player that everybody is touting as an excellent player to build a team around. So maybe if it really does come to fruition and all these blocks kind of piece themselves around Icy, maybe that could be the thing. Maybe there isn't too many big star players at the top. I mean, I know Rolkis can be fiery sometimes, but maybe Icy's the guy to build it around.
I'm wondering if we can actually check in with our overalls while we have a little bit of time here, because we only have 1 match left to go, which is going to be over on Miramar. But I'm curious to see if we've had any major shifts, because we did have Demorte pick up 2 victories, so they should have been able to shoot up the leaderboard when they were in 12th place previously. I wonder if Unicorns of Love as well have been able to get a decent shoot up, because it's really hard to keep track of, I guess, the point discrepancies between different like tiers in our rankings. Like right now, almost a 40-point difference between Mad Bulls and Eastern Stars. That's in its own tier of itself. And then you look down the list here, and then there's like 162 to 156 cutoff, where Pioneer joins in at 6th place. But great to see Demorte though on the first page.
Yeah, Demorte able to push himself up. I mean, those 2 wins, you expected something like that to happen. We were just a few days into the tournament. Like, Demorte was expected to be at least on that first page. So good to see on them. Of course, if they can keep it up, that's good. We saw the circles being a little bit advantageous. They were able to play around that. But if they can remain up there, not fall off like I saw a little bit happen sometimes on Codex, I think that would be my question mark for Demorte right now.
I mean, 2 things from me. I mean, the 2nd through 5th, extremely close, right? Like, these teams are quietly just on par with one another for a bit. Also, I completely forgot, but I really want to talk about it right now. I didn't realize Mad Bulls is coached by Pokemon, who has a wealth of BR experience, and I didn't realize until about, I don't know, 20 minutes ago. So that's huge in itself. So I'm very excited now, even more so, to watch Mad Bulls and kind of the choices that they're making based on that potential. So yes, please, more of that.
Let me ask you, James, are you seeing that kind of play style replicated in how we've seen Mad Bulls play?
I've not been looking out for it yet. So now, of course, my mind's going to be ticking over and I'm going to be like, is it kind of, do I see those trends kind of occurring here in the games coming up? So we'll see. I'll keep my eyes on it.
We saw that Sanok game where they actually got themselves the win, was that instant rotation on the Northwestern Island, right? So I think he has definitely played a role, it seems, in like those kind of plays, because they were the only team to really adapt that well and that quickly to the group changes every single game. So I'm sure that like he had some role to play, but we'll see as the days go on.
I mean, to be fair, Class Digital Athletics, we had the same thing happen last year where they brought in a coach who had a wealth of BR experience, and then all of a sudden they became one of the most dominating teams in the world, if you think about it, you know, back to like the PMGC times. So interesting to see like how big of an impact a coach really can be on a roster, and something to keep in mind for all the teams who currently don't have one.
Yeah, like in Turkey, for example, I think Supermassive Blaze is now coached by Sixmo. So I'm hoping that maybe they are also able to have kind of a step up as well. So yeah, I like the dynamics that coaches from, you know, who have this wealth of BR experience can come in and give, because map knowledge is a massive thing, rotations is a massive thing, and all of these kind of add up to just being able to add better components to your gameplay. If you're a great fragger, it's fantastic, but there is a lot more than just fragging that goes on in PUBG Mobile.
I think we've seen a lot of like rotations as well, and positions that you want to take, advantages in every single zone that you possibly can go for, which I think a coach really does give you, especially if they can interact with you a little bit live to help you make some calls. But really great to see though that coaches are making such a big change to teams and helping them improve on. Now, if only we could find a coach for ourselves, because you know what, Avenger, I can't stand to listen to one more second when playing. Let's throw it to our commentators, some people who I do like listening to, John Allen and Blake.
That's very nice of you, Jason, that you like listening to us. I mean, that's heartwarming as a sentiment. But yeah, I can only agree, Avenger, don't coach me, please.
I like Avengers coach. You know what you guys are on about. It makes the right calls a lot of times, just because you guys just want to go off in the opposite direction. Look, okay, Avenger knows where it's at, and I may be the only one here. Unfortunately, we're going to go straight over to Miramar instead. We're not listening to Avenger anymore, and instead some of these teams are going to try and avenge what has happened throughout the day and try and pick up some extra points right at the end of day 4 of phase 1. So this is the very first day coming back after the initial half of phase 1, so a lot of these teams would like to get a few more points towards the end. Maybe some of these teams at the top who haven't been able to find themselves the most marvelous day around.
No, it's but then again, it doesn't need to be marvelous, it just needs to be solid, right? If you're hitting 35 points on the day, it's good news, right? That's okay. That's good enough to see yourself looking pretty solid for those bonus points in the phase. Looking good to get towards Livik as well. I have to wait and see who's going to be able to reach that mark, who will be able to jump that hurdle as we head into the Miramar.
Что, полетели?
The Miramar, the only Miramar around.
Резни не будет,
This is
да.
our last Miramar of the day,
Сегодня
so
без резни.
you're sort of correct in that sense.
Playing
Waiting
on
for the playing
PUBG
path.
Mobile.
The PUBG Mobile on the Miramar, with the playing path coming from the north side of La Coparia down towards just past Chumacero. So very similar to what we saw before in our last Miramar, except this one's just a little bit further off to the western side. So slightly harder to head over towards El Azahar, Minas Generales, or La Bandita, but still definitely doable with the vehicles that are given to you. Tumuerte's back in, so Hacienda potentially for this.
Бля, как же у Мэдов много очков, посмотрите.
Go for them considering Game Lord. Just haven't
Ты
been
видишь, сколько у Мэдов очков?
and perhaps Tumuerte just feeling a little bit more confident.
Seems like a couple of
Он
teams
видит,
who are
сколько
looking
очков.
forward to have good days, just
Он
not
сам в
quite
ахуе
hitting that
говорит.
mark. Na'Vi, 15th place,
Он
TJB,
смотрит такой,
11th
говорит,
place,
блядь,
both not playing in
Мэдбулс,
this game, so that
нахуй,
will be the end
пиздец.
of their day. Not ideal. I mean, we saw glimmers from Na'Vi, TJB not so much, but it's not
Привет,
ideal
привет.
for these teams, right? They'll have another 2 days worth of games to try and buck their ideas up, and there is potential to be able to lead out into this field and gain a little bit of points in that middle pack. But you were talking about it last game, that top spot has really started to open up. I think Kalaris was talking about it on desk as well. 3rd through to 9th is also fairly open. It's fairly malleable in terms of the progression that can happen over these next couple of days.
Yeah, 2 days left to jump between maybe an 11-pointer to a 17-pointer coming into the finals. It's quite big. With Na'Vi no longer in the game though, Shockwave, who have been feeling very confident today, take up their drop spot over towards La Cobreria and then can move down. Unicorns are Love, I feel like they're scouting for vehicles at the moment, perhaps even moving over towards El Azahar, not a bad idea for themselves. But it's X-Team who are over towards Hacienda del Patron and Muerte, who are picking up a comfortable position over towards Monte Nuevo.
Pozzo, Mad Bulls. Still holding that top spot in the tournament with a 39-point lead. They've been keeping that fairly established very effectively. Over
PUBG Mobile, так они давно уже, по-моему.
good. Those 20 points if they can keep up pace. But we haven't seen the fire that we've seen from them in previous days today.
Там, походу, про Беста не знают. Там Бест нормально фланганул так на горку. Да. Нок уже. Забил он. Сейчас второго еще может. Ай-яй-яй-яй-яй. Блять, как плохо-то. Ой, как плохо. Как они не законтролили. Просто ровно месте, -2. Тангар всегда дырявый, всегда надо лутать ган и идти ждать, пока на тебя горка выйдет. 90% случаев на тебя эта гора выходит, если с тобой дропается кто-то.
Every single time on other Miramars. Again, back to my original point, 169 points for Mad Bulls at the beginning of the day, now up to 201. So that's a 32-point scorer so far. And if anything's to go by, if they get another 10 points this game, they're on track for a pretty decent average as long as they can go for another big win.
Ну и сейчас Black White туда же. Еще и натопал, блин. Они не услышали его. Но они все равно чекнут. А можно заныкаться попробовать, там за коробку сесть. Пробовать, может, они не заметят. А он вообще... Ну, а зачем? Какой смысл? Что? Вот что он сделает? Вот что он сделает? Ну ничего он не сделает. Хотя бы можно было попробовать убежать. Вдвоем бы разыграли. Ну. Либо он, типа, байтил на себя, пока Фачи уходит. Я не понял.
Dropping into a compound just further down range. Now Chimacera is free and clean for Big to loot up in. Now, Big's been one of those teams that just hasn't had the most amazing performance. 16th place right now, 83 points. Again, still malleable, like you said before, John, in those spots up towards 10th place. So the lot can change, but again, it's not the Big that we're used to. I think Jason's looking for something a little bit more from this team. Had a few issues, but hopefully they're now resolved. But for Big, you know, they have some big names on that team. We've got Beast, Michi. You know, these are all players who have really put in work, put in time within the Western European scene, and have astounded a lot of us, especially when they were back, you know, playing on Destiny. You know, that was a team that, you know, every time you headed up to Sandhawk, you were like, right,
почему Кэп я ешь? Почему Кэп? Что ты взял? Е, я ж не игрок даже.
Yeah, it seems that they have faltered just that little bit in their progression, but there is still time. And it is only phase one, so even if it's not the best phase for them, there'll be time to readjust, there'll be time to get their...
Хотел сказать рефери?
I mean, they should have been doing that the whole time, as I imagine all of these teams are, but hopefully an opportunity to regain some composure with the full point reset on the phase. It can be a little bit of a weight off your shoulders mentally, right, for these players.
Ооо, бля, стата очень хорошая. У Мэндов в среднем почти 5 киллов за Мирамар. И больше косаря урона. Это прям уважаемо. Какой навесился? Гацентов сейчас нет уже. Они ушли из мобильной дисциплины. Я хз вообще, что у них сейчас там. Каким у них дисциплинам есть составы? Ну, скорее всего, по таким, где... Какие дисциплины в Европе популярные.
Though small, is quite big at the moment, John. I know that sounds...
my head around that.
Yeah, I know. 40 points ahead. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot for phase one, but considering we only got 2 days left, like it's going to be hard to catch up to that if Mad Bulls...
Я все еще не придумал, что мне съесть. Так что предложения остаются открытыми.
What's that, over 8 games played for each of the other teams, with 4 games played a day. That'll bring them up to needing 5 more points than Mad Bulls every single game on average, to be able to draw level. And that's assuming the Mad Bulls continue on their current trajectory, which, to be fair, if they're turning it down a little bit from those first couple of days, they'll be a little bit lower than that trajectory, as they have already made the glut of their points in that first week of Phase 1.
Exactly, and again, it's that 40 point a day. Yeah, it's not as big as maybe an Eastern Stars with 50.
Достер. Блин, вот, кстати, Дода Пицца интересно звучит. Но, по-моему, сюда ко мне не везут, хотя она находится, типа, супер рядом. Но почему-то на мой адрес, я ввожу свой адрес, у меня нет доставки.
Shockwave started the day well with a chicken dinner on Erangel from down in a ditch under the view of the Mad Bulls themselves, and were able to get into top 3 in the first Miramar of the day. See if they can repeat that performance now. A lot of teams looking pretty good on Miramar. I mean, you've got 5 average eliminations here. It was 4 point something, I think, for the Mad Bulls, 4.6 for Virtus Pro,
4.2.
It all comes down to
4.75 for Mad Bulls.
То, что манекены, да, я знаю, забанили.
But it all comes down to that survival time in terms of those point values.
Привет, Ноб.
Yeah. I think for Unicorn, we've actually seen
С добрым
some
утром.
of our best teams here on Miramar, to honestly, other than Death Machine. Unicorns of Love typically make it very, very far towards the end of the circle. Team Doom, 22 minutes as well.
Не, он просто играл не свой регион.
You're losing a lot of these players early on.
Не знаю, мутный тип он какой-то.
Crawls through to the end, but Team Doom also another team that has surprises here on Miramar. Was, I would say, you know, it's been awkward.
Не, Олда кикнули, потому что он выступает за российскую организацию. Тоже, опять же, непонятно.
Getting the rundown as well onto Monkey. Skill's not in a position to get any sort of revenge. Codex as well. Might have heard that. Heard the vehicles across the way. Shift.
Не, я уже приготовил один раз 10-этажную пиццу, я проебал на нее, блядь, больше 3 косарей и в итоге проблевался смачно.
VP, who have just consistently not had to move at all, so they have the lion's share of the southeast side of this circle. But Shockwave, as well as Unicorns of Love, you can imagine both of these teams will be moving down. I think for Unicorns of Love, real priority for them, considering they know exactly where Shockwave rotated off.
Роллы, ну я позавчера ел роллы, но бля, что-то хз.
And try and razz it down towards Impala, or one of the compounds that just watches over those eastern roads.
Такой игрой, как играли МП, не, шансов не было. Ну ты сам видел их игру.
Especially with so many teams having to drop towards the western side of the map just purely because of the playing path, this would be the heads-up move for Unicorns of Love.
Ну сегодня не ел, да, логично.
See if they can make that move. A lot
Дода
of
Пицца вроде да, вроде российская.
There's North Hills, north of Los Leones. See Eastern Stars mounting. That's on the east side of those hills. Death Machine were a little bit ahead. They're already at the back. On the Los Leones side of those hills, and Game Lord as well pushing in from the north side. So a lot of teams looking for real estate around here.
Рольчики оформить. Я не наемся.
It's a position that's fairly strong, especially with Eastern Stars. You know, you don't want to go too far into the city. You've been watching
Цезарь,
PUBG
фу,
Mobile
блядь,
for a long time, you will know that. Just considering
Я вообще не любитель Цезаря.
leaving the city
Он
is
типа
very
норм, но...
difficult.
В играх это сам, мне кажется, это самая оверпрайснутая хуйня, которую только можно заказать.
Expression, feeling the eyes in the back of your head cannot be understated here when you're sitting around in Los Leones, because it really does feel that way.
Scouting being done by Eastern Stars right now. Not really spotting out too much. Mad Bulls with 3 players. The northwestern side slowed down by their engagements with Muerte, but if they send to the north side of Picardo, they might have a better time of it than a lot of these teams on the south side of them right now. Looks like Codex are going for this airdrop as well. It's on this western edge.
Пицца плюс роллы, я что, миллионер?
Quick pick up on that, get some loot, get some level 3s, assist you as you have to move down.
Еще вы сказали, блядь, дошек с хлебом, бля, есть. Или с майонезом. Миллионеры, что ли, все?
From the Unicorns of Love to try and hold out on Shockwave. Rolkis lets a couple of them pass. They're not able to take too many shots, but now there is players behind. These are the ones that they can try and cut off here.
They have managed to find that middle point, and they're looking for the squeeze, but only damage.
Что надо делать? Надо пока не идет игра.
Looks like they have managed to get that isolation going and bringing themselves a favorable fight. Pioneer, one player alive.
Камбургер. Все, минус пионеры.
Pioneer down.
Yeah, you're pretty terrified when that happens to you. Personally, wouldn't like it. This is, again, I still really like this play from Unicorns 11. It's one that I called early on. And I think Gonzo is really the guy that marshaled that happening. Sent down very, very early. Again, IGL, back when he was on Kanina Power, very good at calling the shots and sends him to a position where the rest of his team can regroup on top of him. And now they've really thrown Shockwave for a loop. You can see two of the players currently in one vehicle, so they must have been able to hit a couple of tires, which forces them now onto the buggy. And again, it's a desperate regroup coming through from Shockwave.
Ну вот я сейчас ввел Tokyo City, ни в Delivery, ни в Яндексе нет нигде. Если это по-любому какие-нибудь сетевые роллы, они большинство беспонтовых. Почти все. Стейк не... Стейк заказывать это вообще кощунство. И мне проще его приготовить. У меня типа здесь прям рядом мираторг. Пойти нормальный кусок мяса купить и пожарить. Блин, может так и сделать. Мне просто лень готовить. Хотя... У меня новогоднее настроение, ну да, уже. Я просто радуюсь, что школьники наконец-то пошли в школу. Где бибон? Какой бибон? Да я понимаю, не, типа стейк-то быстро готовится. На улице очень холодно, тупой дождь, ветер. Не хочу выходить, в этом единственная проблема. Либо общаюсь. Да не то, что общаюсь, да в целом. Так, типа. Скажем так, не ругался. Не, я люблю ходить сам, типа, мясо выбирать. Его потрогать, почитать. Типа, в Мираторге там много всякого прикольного мяса есть. А, ты про Бибу? Да, Биба-то норм, но только он что-то как-то тупил иногда. Это было вроде когда? Его 1000 лет назад. Не знаю вообще, куда он пропал. Может, он забил на игру. Бараньи ребра.
This position, but so is Virtus Pro aware of the sightlines. Just want to loot up as much as possible. Icy finding shots over towards Eastern Stars. This is behind Virtus Pro. They tried to move up towards the cylinders here. Might be a chance for maybe
Понял. Ну, чё, обидно. Сколько дней еще отбор? Еще играть. Че весь сентябрь играть? Им все норм? Не, ну им все хорошо, я понимаю, что типа там сейчас не до игры совершенно. Зона full лосик, просто full лосик уебала. Ой, сейчас весело будет. Блин, прикольные сегодня зоны. В скобочках говно, но смотреть их интересно. Играть их очень ебано. Здесь с такой зоны бесполезны какие-то предикты лори. Вообще что угодно может произойти. Это же город. Титаны в Африке, да, нормально. Они, кстати, сейчас играют параллельно. Да не, Нави-то будут в финале, я не сомневаюсь. В Амстердаме у него потери семьи, бля, соболезную.
in this engagement. 3 players from Mad Bulls holding out. Somewhere to try and skirt around the sidelines. Swift reverse coming through. Looks like they don't want to go for the crash. Not just yet.
Мне кажется, Мэдам сейчас ничего не надо делать. Им просто сидеть АФК. Сейчас со всех сторон ёбка идет. То мне показалось, они что-то хотели пойти этих рью запушить. Откуда инфа, что Синами не будет на PMGC с региона? Что за бред? Сейчас судьба СНГ региона от Нави зависит. О, вот это вот, блядь, смарт-хаешка была, кстати. По-моему, я перетаймил. Ой-ой-ой-ой. Ой-ой-ой-ой-ой. Ну хорошо, что им не надо их пушить, ехать. Или надо? Не надо. Все-таки надо. Ладно. Я думал, что у него есть инфа, что все свободно через дорогу на той стороне.
There was a pinball or an aid there. I'm not sure if that bobbled down or if he managed to get it back in before he was knocked. It looks like they will be safe for now. Game Lord.
Нам бы в верхнюю бетонку отойти. Уже никак это не сделают. Хотя... Не, там беги, все контролирует.
Slowly pushed up during all this towards Eastern Star's position. Eastern Stars still sat up with 4 players. You can see them holding several different angles. And this is something that Eastern Stars have been very good at, which is supporting one another's sight lines. Just wonder how well they can pull it off here as Bazzi gets caught out in the open.
Убежал смотреть. Ненадолго. Стоп, или это другой был уже? Да, это другой.
Does manage to stay alive, get some healing done, and now Gonzo spotted, not knocked. Finally, the last bullet finds its mark. Icy God wants the same cross.
Раб говорил, который на 10 миллионов подписчиков, я хз, правда это мне? Ну, блядь, показатель подписчиков не... Или такое количество подписчиков не показатель. Тем более раб.
The jump punches, and now Icy God's got a tall task ahead of him. Has to remove Bazzi from the position. That nade should take down a couple of them. The rest of the Eastern Stars come.
Я не знаю, Дафик, сейчас настолько быстро все меняется. Сейчас уже сложно. Сейчас очень много игроков у нас сильно. Даже не одну команду можно собрать.
Quick spin. Game Lord moves up towards that northern side, leaves Codex behind, looking more for this centralized position within the circle itself. And they know now, with it kind of being confirmed to be an urban finish, they need to find themselves some kind of building to occupy. But X team currently holding so many of them. The issue is because they're split, they take a single knock and it's game over.
Я думаю, его откинуло. Пиздец там лаги. Куда вы поехали-то? Алло, куда ты едешь, Страйкер? Он бы хоть постоял, подождал брать своих. Там же дом свободный был на краю. Он поехал и тиммейта продал, надо было просто сразу поворачивать.
Four Romanian men have been holding these high grounds for a long time, but Team Doom just zoomed past them.
4 Romanian men on the ground floors now. Andre on the outside, Runner up on the ceiling, Killer on the outside as well. Potentially looking to play this stairwell.
Да, они распадут. Да не, я не думаю, что они распадутся.
Anyone to spray at, unfortunately, easy. Gets spotted. 4 Romanian men.
Всех в спину просто забрали. Кодексы, кстати, отдефались. Это не может не радовать. И еще на краю зоны там нормально сидят. Да, интересно, у нас картка последняя выдаст. Точнее, уже выдалась.
Phase 1 may have had the better of them towards that first weekend, but this time around looking a lot smoother for the 4 Romanian men. Codex do make their way across just behind GameLob, but this is the issue, is that it's just so out in the open, and GameLob's able to find a position where, you know, they can start to set up some vehicles and set up some crossfire.
Ух, ебать, что за зоны, господи. Что это такое? Там единственное только ВП чуть-чуть просто краем зоне. Или даже больше не в зоне, чем в зоне.
Yeah, I was mentioning this earlier, that it's one of those positions where you have to play it very confidently, and I think X Team today, again, it's that limit testing that we were talking about before, that they just want to see how far they can go.
Перетаймил. Блядь, да.
Salazar kind of whiffs that nade a little bit. Now Valo, I think GameLord maybe moved. Honestly, it's hard to say.
Не, чел. Ты что-то в себя поверил.
There's no good decisions to be made here, really. It's only the least bad of the bunch that you're looking for. X Team with the high ground nightmare, with such an incredible vantage point as the backstop for X Team on their position.
Я понимаю, люди не умеют, что ли, кидать предметы, когда они снизу находятся? Снизу вверх или что? Элементарную физику не знают? Блядь, первого класса? Вообще в первом классе есть физика? Наверное, в пятом классе, да?
Ruthless Esports losing Salazar was a bit of a big mistake.
Ooh, Mannequin on the sidelines last stand.
Давай, Манекен, один в один. Покажи класс.
They knew that position. It was scouted earlier, but the corner not
Хорош.
really giving too much respite. And the spray comes in. That's Ruthless Esports down. I don't think these
Мэдов там вообще поливают просто двухсторонние ДМР и ВПшки.
They want to save their team.
They're on a slowish side of the circle, so if he picks him up and kind of pulls him a little bit further in, he might be able to get him up if he drops the first aid quick enough. Again, does decide to just leave him, sends in an X Team's got eyes on, tries to go central.
Ooh, that's not going to work out. All 4 of X Team immediately on the swivel. Mannequin goes down. Codex eliminated. Virtus Pro, 2 players alive. Mad Bulls. They're playing with just the one at the moment. Skills, last player. Very close to old boy right now.
Вот топ-1 еще взяли, красавцы.
Not the sort of guy you want to tussle with. Not if you can help it. They're on the upstairs as well. Repositions. You know, there's a player nearby, so they want a different angle here.
Да залезь выше, нельзя тебе тут стрелять. Тут опен.
All 4 of them alive. One is knocked and they're brought down to 3. Nightmare is dismounted as well. That's a really important pickup for this push for Death Machine. They managed to look for that ground floor, but Zombie absolutely on the money with the spray.
Че, мы пойдем потом смотреть Африку или нет?
Two eliminations. Again, it's just that control, though. It's been the big thing. Modi takes some sprays through the smoke. There's not a lot of other teams here with that much of a good position. Unfortunately, with Zombie going down, that does leave X Team down to 3.
Ой-ой-ой-ой-ой-ой, ну как так? Ну, блядь. Нельзя в такой позиции вообще нокаться. А почему он выше не залез? А, Титан еще ласт не играет. Ну все, тогда понял, тогда не пойдем.
Mesa now, though, in trouble. X Team swings out wide, looks for the drop shot, put to bed. Beg for mercy. Will be taken one down. 4 eliminations now for X Team and 3 alive.
I think today and the few bits of success that X Team's been able to find has kind of reinvigorated the team a little bit. And Beg for Mercy, you know, he has always been an extremely good player. Unfortunately, X Team.
Ну потому что Акзер африканец, ты не знал?
The difficulty lobby has gone up massively, so someone has
Коренной
to
причем.
the bunch. But X Team today, you got to be proud of them if you're a fan or you're supporting them from home, because today has just been all about getting rid of any shackles, any wariness in this lobby, and just going gung-ho. And I'm absolutely all for it, to be honest with you.
For Romanian men.
У Акзера 3 гражданства, у него казахская, африканская и китайская.
6 eliminations so far, but now just with 1 player left. Eastern Stars, 2 players alive. 5 eliminations.
А Тик вообще африканец полностью.
Athis moves forwards. Shockwave just around the corner. X Team.
У него вроде Там на несколько поколений. Те африканцы в семье.
With the angles that are around this location, it's an opportunity for them to bridge the gap between them and Madball so they can start to try and make the big sprint tomorrow and the day after that to try and take the top spot away. I think they really did start out very strong in the beginning of our phase. Now, this game is tricky.
У него была единственная хаешка. Он ее так бездарно проебал.
On the deck, biding time. Circle doesn't really go to anyone. I mean, Shockwave are right in the
Замер, ну какой-то стендин ВП.
best time of it here. Next team will have to push in from the north side, potentially covered from Eastern Stars and VP.
Yeah, there's practically no cover.
Так, пошла раскидочка. Точечная.
How much utilities they have left in terms of smokes to get their way across. I mean, Athis is already a case where he has to push out of the blue. Doesn't want to give away the position as of yet, rather waiting for the rest of the team to start moving in. With Shockwave right in the center, it's kind of the worst thing to happen to you if you are Shockwave, because now you've got practically all the other teams looking at your location. Now there's the run from
Ты что, ебанутый, суета?
as the fight begins. Very good timing from them.
Zombie shutting down those off angles as well, taking one of Virtus Pro out of the mix. Mer now looking for that challenge, but there's more bullets landing their way. The flush comes in, and Old Boy will go no longer. Up against the wall. Do they know that he's there, Zombie? Trying to find it, but do X Team need the backup? Eastern Stars eliminated in the meantime. VP down to 1. It's a 3v3 between these main teams. Mer has to step up. Could have been spotted by Zombie. I don't think it was.
Сейчас пятку бы ему настрелял. Живи, мир! Блять! Походу, иксы проснулись. Они ж вообще в жопе где-то. Да выйди ты, блядь, убей его сверху, чел! Чё вы стоите, блядь? Ой, господи. Я представляю, какой у них там тимспик. Я понимаю, почему они теперь играют так.
Absolutely, and I think for X Team, I will keep saying it today. They have been limit testing and they've broken the limiter today as well and gone further beyond, which is what you always want to see from a team. You know, it did feel like they were a little bit too careful in the first half of the phase, a little bit too scared of these other teams, but they've come out kicking and they just look a lot better today overall. Yes, they don't get the huge.
Косовары, это кто такие?
Just in terms of team fighting, it doesn't look like it's a lay down and die type of moment for X Team anymore. They can at least take this hand to hand with the teams and come out, you know, with a few bruises.
Я вообще нихуя не понял.
Absolutely, it was really, really nicely played. The shift did go up their way.
А, Косово, я понял. А они разве косовары называют? Я думал, косовцы. Нихуя себе, косовары. Косовары, блядь. Прикольно. А чё фута сразу? Я понимаю, что много где не признаны, но а чё фута? Причем тут челики эти?
It's not easy, right? And they're able to do it, and that comes with caution. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to give you another caution because we're heading over some very handsome guys, so make sure that you put your sunglasses on and keep your eyes away from the sun.
Чё, все получается? Косово уже стрпе. Чё, все, давайте, чил. Пойду я, наверное, что-нибудь приготовлю. Или нет, или я не знаю. Короче, все. До завтра всем. Завтра, скорее всего, в это же время. В 8 жду. Будем смотреть дальше. Какие дела. Четвертая катка. Африку. Да пизду, не хочу. Все. Я уже не настроился. Уже пропал настрой. Поэтому... Все, всем б-б.